Hello and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. Today's guests are two brothers known as the Hirst brothers. They're hosts of the Hirst Brothers podcast, and they are professional musicians hailing all the way from Toronto, Canada. Welcome to the podcast. How you doing, guys?
All right. Thank you so much for having us. Doing great.
Yeah, doing great. Can't complain over here.
It's my absolute pleasure. It's always lovely to meet like fellow musicians, and I could probably just talk to you about that all day, to be honest with you.
For sure.
I've got various different questions for you, broken down on your podcast, your music, and just a bit about you guys in general. But yeah, I guess let's just jump straight into your podcast. Now, I know the reasons why you do your podcast, but I always like to kind of let my guests kind of say it in their own words rather than me just putting words in your mouth. So talk to us about your podcast and how it all started.
For sure. So originally, I guess the story starts with music and creating our own music, having a blast doing that. We've been doing it for about a year and a half, releasing singles and learning everything from A to B on how to make your own music. Realized really quickly that it's tough to get people to hear what you're making. And the promotion side is not something that we're great at, nor are we throwing massive amounts of money into it.
Nor do we have the funds to put towards promoting our own music. So.
All just a hobby.
I feel you.
yeah, exactly.
That's tough.
All just a hobby and all on the side. And we noticed that obviously we're not the only people that are experiencing this problem. So we thought, let's do something different. What if we did a podcast? We've got the gear for it. We've got lots of great stories that we want to share. And at the same time, we can try and expose music from other people who are in a similar position as us. And so that is kind of what conceived the idea of doing the podcast. We rate and review 3 independent musicians' songs on each episode and keep track of where they're all at. And then hopefully if they share amongst their friends and we share amongst our friends, it's a win-win for everybody. So, we're on episode 8 now and we're having a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the best parts of it for what we're doing is that I'm away at school. We're apart anyways, and we love music regardless. And I love listening to new music, experiencing new bands. So it's kind of a way for us to chat for an hour, shoot the shit for an hour, listen to some new music, and it really just works out. We'd be doing it anyway. So it was kind of one of those, we may as well record it and start a podcast because why not? It can help bands. It can help other people find new music as well.
Yeah, I think you touched on a very good point here as well, because one of the things I think that is really difficult, both when you're trying to promote a band or, even just a creative project in general, it's always that issue of kind of, you want to always be focusing on your brand, promoting yourself, connecting with others and everything, but primarily putting everything into that. But a lot of people's mistake is that they don't network enough. They're so focused on doing their own thing that they're not meeting people, and that's how you get these experiences. And it's a no-brainer. I was looking at your podcast and the reasons for why you were doing it, and I was like, yeah, this just makes sense. I mean, even from a business standpoint, as musicians, you make connections. Oh, we need to plan out a tour for the next 12 months. Oh, well, we've got loads of contacts that we've made through this. We'll just hit everyone up and construct something. It's just a no-brainer. I think it's a great idea. But
I think you totally nailed it there too, is thinking about it as a business. And even though this is a hobby for us and something that we enjoy doing, and like Mark said, we'd be doing it anyways, I have an MBA and I have a strong background in business. So every time I think of an idea, I'm thinking of how does it work logistically? And just like you said, if you spend all of your effort on content and music, but you don't have that background to think about how do I network it? How do I grow it? How do I get it out there? Otherwise, you're making music for yourself, which is okay. I mean, part of the reason we do it is just for us.
But most musicians are going to be excited for other people to listen as well.
100%.
I'd say a lot of them, probably all of them, are they're in it for getting other people to hear their music, changing someone else's life, and having those thoughts as well.
Do you know, it's funny you mentioned that, because I kind of, it just sparked a random memory for me. I remember when I was in my first band years ago, we were just these clueless teenagers in a metal band, just trying to make it in London, right? And I remember something that really stood out to me was different bands' attitudes towards you. Everyone is in the same situation where you're playing to 5 people and no one gives a fuck about you and you're just trying to make it, right? But at the same time, like some people's bands would be like really nice to you, even if they've been doing it years or they've just started, their attitude would be great, right? It never really mattered about the age thing. But some people took themselves way too seriously. Like, oh no, you can't talk to us. Like, oh, you're not good enough. And it's like, excuse me, last time I checked, we weren't fucking headlining, I don't know, I was going to say Woodstock, but it's not even a festival. You know what I mean? Like,
no, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's in any part of life. There's always just people taking it too seriously for where they're at. Like, no credentials. We're actually playing the same show right now, and you're treating me weird. And it's like, all right, it's not a fun experience. And hopefully people can tone that down.
It's just that whole attitude, just like you're shooting yourself in your foot. Like I remember hearing, I don't know if you guys have heard of this guy. He's an entertainer, presenter, James Corden. It's a British guy.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, in the UK, it's interesting with him. I'll try to make the point quick because I don't want to talk about him too much, but yeah, he sort of was like beloved for many years as part of various TV shows in the UK, and then obviously he started doing stuff abroad in America and has made quite a career for himself. But there's all these stories popping up about how he's unprofessional, he treats anyone that isn't a celebrity like shit, and I feel like in many ways, that stuff is beginning to haunt him now because it stops you from getting work. That's the thing. From a business standpoint, it stops you from being able to progress. And it's like, if you're a businessman, regardless of what you do, there's less opportunities to get work. That's less opportunities to earn money, less ways to pay the rent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and right from the music as well. You play a show with someone, it goes fantastic, they're great guys. You're going to play another show. Who do we want to invite to play in our show? It's like, well, probably the same guys that we had a great night with the last time, not the guys that are going to treat us like shit because they think they're better than us.
You're spot on. Yeah, I've had that situation where we've had, I remember one time we were doing like an EP launch for my first band, and we were looking for bands. Like, it was our first time, like, fully doing our own show from the ground up, selling our merch, all this. It was really exciting, but we needed bands to support us. And we had a band that we'd played with quite a few times, we were friends with, and they were older than us. And as soon as we were like, hey, would you be on the bill? They're like, hell yeah. And they drove down from like wherever the hell they live, quite far down to come play with us. And I always thought about that, like how it was cool that, they were bothering with us, some teenagers or whatever. But I think it came down to what we've been discussing. Like, you can be professional and take yourself seriously, but also not be a jerk, basically, is what I've sort of been driving at with this whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's space for everybody in this industry. I mean, you can be as competitive as you want, but there is millions and millions of artists who are all really, really good, and you're not really going to get anywhere by stepping on the little guy. So, and you never know who's going to blow up. So at the same time, like, you're way better treating everybody equally.
Little guy blows up, and then you're trying to get there, and it's like, I'm not taking you. I'm not having you open for me.
Exactly.
I almost feel like it's at this point as well, given that, we have the internet now, and with the way that things are, like, you want to be doing everything you can to make your reputation as good as possible. Like, as soon as people start saying bad stuff about you, that stuff will just stay. And people might look you up and see that and go, oh, I don't want to work with people like that. And then boom, before they've even talked to you, you've lost an opportunity. So people should really be looking at that, like, very seriously.
Yeah, it's like having a 1-star review on Yelp. Nope, not going there for brunch.
Nope.
Waiter yelled at me. No, thanks. Not going back there.
Oh man. Yeah, I actually on a side note, I came across a really interesting thing recently, because I do marketing on a freelance level. That's what I studied at uni, blah blah blah. And there's this company, I won't say the name, but like, they have like this new rating system where it takes into account the initial review and then puts like, social media factors like your following, your activity, all of that stuff, combines it with like the backline marketing practices you put into your website, and things like backlinks and I don't know, domain authority, all that technical jargon. And instead of just taking that one review, it puts all of those things into one thing together, and essentially makes its own like score based on that. And I thought
Yeah.
that was a really good way of making like a more accurate score, rather than just having one person with their opinion who might not even be telling the truth as well. Like,
Yeah, this guy's just a shit poster and he only gives 1-star reviews. Well,
or is a 5-star poster and they're a 1-star.
Yeah.
Both ways.
Could go either way. Oh, that makes
true,
sense.
True. Yeah, but bringing it back to your podcast, what have you actually learned through podcasting so far? You said you're 8 episodes in, so it's obviously still early days, but
yeah,
what are the key lessons so far?
Well, obviously the first couple were rocky. Just learning, how to speak in podcaster terms, the gear. I mean, we went through so many technical hiccups where all of a sudden we've lost our recording, or we've used various softwares. So I think we've got it steady now. We've learned the ropes of how our show is going to sound, and we don't have nearly as many glitches as we used to, which is nice. I've also learned that there's a lot of really good artists out there. So surprised at the level of the music that we're listening to. It's really incredible, and people are submitting to us, and the general premise of the show is we haven't heard the song before it comes on, so we have somebody else who's taking those submissions, lining them up into 3 similar sounding songs. But Mark and I have just been shocked.
Yeah, there's a ton of bands. We did one last night, and it was probably one of my favorite songs we've listened to. Like, I've downloaded their whole album now, and I'm starting to listen to their music, and I think they have like 86 followers or something. And it's just like, I'm shocked. It's like, well, I'm not shocked, because I kind of have been there and done that with our own bands and our own music and stuff. But you understand, we make the coolest music video ever. I'm so pumped about it. It's got like 200 views on YouTube, and it's like, oh, okay, well, but it's unbelievable. Like, and I guess that's kind of what we're trying to do, is get those people's name out there.
I think, yeah, I know what you mean. Like, years ago, before I started studying marketing and all that stuff, like when I was in that band, for example, we would always struggle with the same thing. And I think that the whole business side of things with being in a band and just everything that comes with that is its own thing entirely. Like it's like, and there are different things that work and different strategies. Like, for some people, it works just doing a kind of unfollow kind of standard style of, well, not necessarily the unfollowing, but like reaching out to people and building connections that way. Other people just, they get lucky, they post stuff online and it starts going viral, it starts picking up attention. Obviously there's the classic style of just literally just playing live and building word of mouth through that way. But yeah, like as far as actually just branding yourself, like it's so important, especially now. I mean, as you said, there are so many good bands out there. And I gotta say, like, I've had some various musicians on my show who it's the same thing. They're not very well known, but I find myself adding it to my own personal collection, because it's this is damn good. This is better than stuff in the charts. Like, how is this thing trending, but this isn't on the radio? What the hell?
Yeah,
but I think that's testament to where the music industry is headed, and how independent music has a lot more value. And I think back in the day, independent music was almost kind of seen as this like dirty, ugly word. Like, oh, it's independent, it's not signed. Whereas I think now it's more intriguing and more exciting. Like I feel like it's almost like a flip reverse. Like if it's manufactured, chances are, maybe it'll probably be very polished and everything, but it won't necessarily be good music.
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure. And gear's come a long way too, right? If we're thinking back, even 20 years, it was really, really difficult to do home recording at home. You either had to have thousands and thousands of dollars to buy the right gear, or you're just making really shitty sounding records. But nowadays, I mean, you can go buy an Apollo Solo for $800 and you've got unison preamps. You can buy all the plugins you want online. You can make really, really good sounding records at home for $1,000, $2,000.
Yeah, you're spot on. It's gotten a lot easier. Like I wish all of these tools existed when I was in my first band, because I've never told this story before, but before we did our first like actual record in a studio, we tried to do it ourselves. This was back in I want to say 2011, and we had like this, what a backing track recorder is, like Yeah, so of course you knew. Sorry.
Yeah.
For anyone that doesn't know at home, it's basically like a little small piece of kit where you can record on it, play things back. It's not really supposed to be used for recording actual stuff. It's more as like reference for like when you record a riff or something on drums or whatever. So it's a reference tool. But here we are trying to use it in this small tiny room to record drums, guitar, vocals. And for the most part, I mean, it sounded like trash because we knew nothing about production and you know, even little things like timing. We didn't bother using metronomes, all of the stuff that you need to do.
Yeah.
But as far as the quality was concerned, it wasn't actually as bad as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
But if we had the access to the tools that are available now, oh my God, I mean, we could have produced some really good stuff at a much younger age. So yeah, musicians now, I think it's always worth doing a bit of homework, but at the same time, you know, it doesn't cost a lot to sound good. I think it's more about the level of effort you put into the editing process, and also just, as I say, doing things like, I know it's a pain in the ass using metronomes, but you have to. Like, I have natural timing as a rhythm player and stuff, but like, if I'm in a studio, we're using the fucking metronome. Like,
for sure.
Yeah.
Gotta do it.
Spot on.
What are your podcasting goals for 2021?
Ooh, for 2021. So we want to continue what we're doing right now is bi-weekly episodes. And we are way ahead of ourselves. So we're lucky enough that we have kind of a bank of episodes built up. So we can just slowly
I'm being a bit of an idiot here, but bi-weekly, is that twice a week?
Oh, no, every other week.
Okay, so every 2 weeks. Yeah.
Every other month.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Got you. So it's basically two episodes per month.
Yeah. Every other Monday is our schedule right now. So we want to continue with that. We want to add kind of like special episodes. We're working on something where it's more of an artist spotlight per se, where we do maybe a 20-minute episode just focusing on one artist and their discography and their story, because we think that'd be neat. And then our last goal is to start a YouTube channel. So we've invested in a little bit more gear where we've got better camera, better angles. Right now we're together, but typically Mark's in Dublin and I'm here in Ontario. So that makes it a little trickier, but we've got a good amount of content filmed and we're looking to produce some higher quality videos, 10-minute videos to throw on YouTube and see how we do there.
And I think along those lines too, I really want to start mixing in like music videos as well. Because I think like adding YouTube into it brings in a whole nother aspect where you can look at the song, and the video, not that we claim to be like, it's all amateur, what are you reviewing and reviews of the videos, but just to comment on it from like your average consumer standpoint and watch the video and say, what did I like about it? What is simple things like that? Cause I love the music video aspect as well. And we've gone back and seen some really cool videos from songs we've reviewed as well. So I think touching on those in the YouTube videos as well would be cool.
I feel like the visual medium as far as music is kind of like a lost art in many ways. I mean, it's gone are the days of, music videos on MTV. Funny story about MTV, actually. I read up, they're not actually officially known as music television anymore. Like, because I figured that, okay, they've changed their name to just MTV, right? But like, it still stands for that, right? But they actually changed the company name. So the company name is literally just MTV, but it doesn't stand for anything. Right. Company that stands for nothing. And it's officially labeled as just for reality TV or all that crap.
Right. Multimedia.
Yeah, but I kind of feel like it's an important point because that's kind of where that died, and it's slowly coming back here and there. You see certain artists kind of doing like interesting stuff here and there, but it is kind of one of those things that it really used to be a massive thing, and now it's kind of like it's a bit of intrigue, but I think people's heads are more in like being able to just stream music wherever and just having access to that. So I think it's cool that you guys are going for that. And also with regards to just multi-platforming in general, like I found this as well with my own stuff, that like you have a different audience on, say, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and people don't always migrate. Like sometimes people almost like actively refuse to do that. So you got to kind of like just make sure your stuff is everywhere. on that basis, as well as just being accessible in general. So like, you know, you have a presence everywhere. When people search you, they find you straight away, you know, all of that jazz. Like, it's, again, with the marketing stuff, it really is all about that.
All comes back. Yeah. Full circle.
Beautiful. What am I saying? I'm stumbling my words. Let's move it forward to your sort of goals and aspirations overall for this podcast. Like, what are the key things that you want to achieve with this?
I'll let you go.
Oh boy. Yeah, I don't know. It's not really something that I've thought about too much at this time, because it really is kind of like a hobby, right? And it's like, we know it's fun for us, but there's potential to, you know, get more involved with it, put more production into it. And like, certainly way down the line, lots of people make a living out of it, or a half living, and half. And like, to me, that wouldn't be an all-time goal. It would just be really cool to watch it progress to something where that's an option. And I know, for like John, with his business background, certainly has more like of an opportunity to involve that into stuff that you work with. But I think that would be like that, not a goal, but just something that I would love to see come from it, where it's like, we could sit down and John could be like, hey, I could like work part-time and possibly also put more effort into this, and we could watch it grow to like an even bigger extent.
Yeah, I agree. I think with anything that we do, even with just the music, with the podcast, with videos, we always want to get better. And that's something that we're driving at, not even just in music, but in life. So whatever you do, it's just constantly strive to get better at it. So I think as we try and grow the channel and become better and better and better, and provide better content, a better experience for listeners, it'd be really neat one day to be able to say, wow, we can do kind of our thing, and maybe not be so worried about our careers.
And even if you decide to focus on the careers, it's like, just to have that thought and be like, you know what, that was cool. Like, this is on the background, and it's something that we love doing, people like doing. We're helping, you know, kind of independent musicians. And I think that that's just like, I think I was saying last night, my number one goal right now would be to have like a repeat musician. Someone submit a song, we do a podcast on it, review it, and then 3 months later, that same person go, hey, here's my new song. I would love for you to review it a second time. Because then I feel like that's like instant confirmation that somebody likes what we're doing. Like, one band was like, I think you guys are doing a good job. Please keep reviewing my music.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah.
But we'll see about that.
No, I think it's always interesting. You know, I mean, reviewers, the only review I can think of on YouTube is that guy, what's his name? The most famous one.
Malcolm or something like that.
It's like his
The tech guy?
podcast. No. He's I'm gonna kill myself for not remembering this. It's like the Needle Drop or something is his official YouTube review thing. God, it's gonna drive me nuts. No, I can't. Well, everyone will know at home. He's bald. He wears glasses. He goes in on everyone, and everyone knows him. God, I can't believe I don't remember that. Anyway,
I'll have to check it out. I said send it to us after when you figure it out.
Oh, it's going to drive me nuts that I didn't remember that. But the point is, like, he has very, you know, he's very honest with his musical opinion. Obviously, he is a musician himself as well, and he's clearly got like, quite a lot of knowledge in that field. But like, people do take his opinion very seriously, and it divides people. You know, people kind of go crazy in the comments, like, oh, he's full of crap, like, you know, you can't believe what he says, like, it's not true. And other people are like, no, he's totally right, like, this album is excellent or bad or whatever. And the point being that I feel that like these reviews are equally as important as just, you know, your own personal opinion, like, before you go in, because it can like kind of shape your idea of like whether or not you want to kind of check this thing out or not. Like, for example, that guy reviewed a Green Day album, I think the Father of All record, and he basically said that it was just terrible and it was just done as a kind of FU to their record company because they wanted to get out of their contract, right? Which is a terrible reason to ever create music. Like, you should never do that. But when you listen to the record, like I sat down and I was like, do you know what? I'm going to try and give it a chance. I'll keep in mind what he said, but I'm going to just give it a quick chance. And I listened to like 3 songs and I just couldn't take it anymore. It was so bad. And he was right. He was so right. And I feel like that those kind of reviews are very necessary, because, you know, most of the critics out there, music critics, you know, it's just official companies. It's like,
yeah,
you know, and that's great and everything, but I don't know that you can always trust them. Like, if we're looking at like movies, for example, I've seen so many films where like the critics pan it, and then I go see it and it's an excellent movie, and I'm like,
yeah, for sure.
Like, what is that based on? And it is just opinion, but it's like a very specific opinion according to like, I guess like an industry expectation maybe. But I feel like with people like yourselves, like who are doing, you know, just genuine, honest reviews with, you know, a musician's kind of opinion, which is different from a casual listening fan. It's like a different opinion. Like, I'm sure you guys can appreciate this. Like, when you become a musician, you just never see music the same way ever again. You know, like totally. Every time you go to a show, you know, it's like waiting to go on a football field, where like fully dressed in gear, but like you can't go and play. And you know, and like if you see I don't know, you hear a musician that's like slightly flat, and you're like, oh my God, come on, man, just come on, go up, come on. It's like it's both a blessing and a curse in a way, but I think it's very important that guys like yourselves are doing that. And I think there's a lot of value in what you're doing. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you actually with regards to this is, I know that you're obviously looking at and reviewing local bands in Canada, but are you sort of thinking of branching out, maybe, you know, going international with this? I know that's kind of a bit crazy to think about, but like, is that kind of, do you think, where this could be headed, or do you just want to kind of focus it on like local?
Oh, no, you're totally right. That we are taking international submissions. We've had an artist from
Barcelona yesterday.
Last night was Barcelona. We've had someone from Denmark. We've had Dublin Mountains.
Lots of the USA as well.
Yeah, all over the place. Thanks to this whole tech world that we're living in. We're getting artists from kind of all over the world.
Fantastic. That's really important as well. I think having that international showcase, because that's another thing as well. I again, this is what happens when musicians are in the same room. There is so much music in different countries that is just not being heard, that deserves to be heard. Like, I lived in a foreign country, in a country called Estonia in Europe for 3 years, and I was blown away by the level of musicians over there. It's incredible. I was like, how is this not internationally recognized? And like, truly, it wasn't just a bias. Like, I still hold that opinion to this day. There's musicians there whose music could be used in like movies and stuff, 100%.
Yeah. Sure.
And sometimes you see bands do it, like Sigur Rós, for example, from Iceland, very famously had their music used in the movie Vanilla Sky, if you remember that. It's a very old movie from the early 2000s, but good movie, by the way. But like it, and the music very much blended in with the theme of the actual movie and everything, and, you know, sort of speaks volumes for how important music is. But point is, that music was fully in Icelandic, was not in English, and it became internationally recognized, won awards, blah blah blah. So there is a lot to be said for showcasing international talent and kind of, you know, just showing that every country has something to offer as far as music is concerned.
Yeah, you're totally right. I don't think we've thought about anything that's not in English. It'd be hard for us to review, because one of the categories we review is, you know, the lyrics and the vocals. And the vocals may sound beautiful, but we have no idea what they're saying. It might be a lower score on that front, but it would be pretty neat to showcase something like that.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't even know if we've had any submissions. Like we said, we don't review them ourselves, but I would not be against it. You just take out the lyrics section and comment on the vocals strictly. But I love that stuff. I love international music. I think it's really cool.
Let's probe. I want to probe your the format of your show a little bit. So you said that you don't do it personally. So like, what's the format of these reviews? How does it work? What's your process?
Oh, you're gonna love this. So, so the show, you're gonna expect the first 15 to 20 minutes is Mark and I sharing stories, talking about funny stuff that we've like just a random variety of topics, and that kind of loosens us up and gets us in a good mood. And then from there it goes song 1, 2, 3. So we basically listen to the song. We stop it numerous times throughout the song. So we might just stop it at a really cool part. Usually we'll do a first thoughts. So after maybe the first verse, we'll stop it and we'll say, what are you thinking? What are you feeling in the first couple 30 seconds of the song? Kind of critique it as we go. And then at the end, we do what's called we rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 biscuits. So we do sound quality, we do lyrics and vocals, and then we do just a general coolness and vibe. Like, how cool is the song? Would you download it? And then out of those 3 categories, both of us are giving 1 to 10 biscuits. Those all get tossed into a simulator, kind of pops out an overall average between the 2 or 3 of us that are on the show. And that's your overall rank. And then that goes on our website, and we keep a leaderboard with everyone that we've reviewed at how many biscuits they received on the show. And yeah, that's kind of the format that we're going with.
And is your podcast audio only, or is it video too? Like, what's the setup?
Right now it's audio only on Apple and Spotify, and I think it's on a bunch of other smaller like Anchor and stuff like that. But we have video for all of it. We just haven't done any long form video production yet. So we're expecting in the new year to be able to hopefully put full episodes up on YouTube with the video. I don't know if we'll go back and do the old ones because it was like I said, there was a lot of hiccups. The format we were doing, we're recording it through a different software, and then we were recording the video on Zoom, but there was no audio there. So you're trying to line it up based on lips. So really difficult to produce videos like that. But now we've got that kind of sorted out. So we could do full videos. But what we have been doing is just pulling together clips. So if something was funny, or usually for every band, we'll have 1 or 2 clips with some of their music and some of the feedback, and that gets posted on Instagram. We've been getting some good feedback there just based on the content that we've been throwing up.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, I must say, of all the music reviewers I've kind of been looking at that are doing stuff on, YouTube, Twitch, whatever, like, there is a lot to be said for seeing the sort of physical reaction, seeing like, for example, sometimes it's what you don't say and your face that says everything. So I think it would be good for your viewers and listeners to be able to see that in the future. For definite. And,
it's on the list.
Did you think you'll ever do live versions, or like a Twitch show or something like that, a streaming show?
That honestly haven't thought about that yet. That would be cool.
Yeah,
Wouldn't be against it.
Maybe like season 1 finale live stream.
Yeah,
something like that. It'd be something to think about for sure.
Well, I'll have to dive into that rabbit hole later. Start learning more about that. I have no experience with Twitch or live streams. Technically, no idea how it works other than maybe just using a webcam like this.
It can be. It literally can be. I mean, it's pretty straightforward to set up, like a, having like one screen is you guys, and another screen is like seeing the song or the video or whatever the case may be. But I think as you guys grow and everything, and you grow an audience, like obviously you can grow an audience through that, but like it will get to a point where people will want to know, like, what do you guys think about, this record or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that it's just an important element. And plus, it's fun. When I started Twitch streaming, I really didn't know what to expect. But I think the interactivity is like a kind of an added bonus, and just makes the experience a lot more fun. Do you know what I mean? Because you can kind of like react to what people are saying and see, like, is it good? Is it bad? What do people think? Is there anything that we haven't considered? It's a way of learning from people. Yes. Only bonuses.
Yeah, for sure. Like live feedback and being able to like adapt to that instantly.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out.
Who are your sources of... no worries. My pleasure. Who are your sources of inspiration for podcasting?
Oh, geez.
Oh, boy.
We ask the deep questions on this show.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
You're going to catch us off guard. So I used to listen to a lot of podcasts when I was commuting a lot. Yeah. Obviously, I've been working from home for the last 9 months or 10 months. So I found that I've been listening to a lot less podcasts, but I listen to the typical, Joe Rogan Experience, some Radio Lab stuff, Bill Burr. I like the comedy side of it, and that's what got me into podcasting in the first place. Now I've started, and I'm more excited for when I'll start commuting or traveling again, because I'll listen to a lot more. But now I've started reaching out and looking into many different smaller podcasts. Like we've got a friend that had us on his once. I'll put yours on my list too. And there's all sorts of just different smaller podcasts that I'd love to dive into once I have time.
It's something I think about a lot because, I've reached like 50 episodes now on my podcast, and I wonder, like, who are the people that listen to this? Does anyone listen? Like, I know there's people listening. The numbers are slowly increasing. Obviously,
Yeah.
I know people that I know that listen to it and tell me that they do. But there's a lot of people, random strangers that I don't know, and they're regularly listening. And I'm thinking about that because obviously the world is kind of screwed from COVID right now, and many people are at home or out of work. So that does affect that. But I feel like when things start to return to normal, you're going to see a massive boost in podcasting. And I think another thing as well with podcasting is that a lot of people kind of quit early. I see everyone and their mums setting up podcasts these days, and I'm like, okay, come back to me when, you've reached like your first 30 and then we'll talk. Because it's, it's one, like, for example, I have a friend, shout out to Buckmeister Carl, who set up a podcast, and he's a good friend of mine online, and he's always sharing my stuff and whatnot and listening to it. And I said to him, and like, just jokingly, I was like, once you start your podcast, you will not have time to listen to my stuff. I guarantee it. And then when we finally got a chance to chat, when he sort of took a break from his podcast, he said that exact thing. He was like, yeah, I never have time. And it's like, you don't realize like how much goes into podcasting and behind the scenes. Like, you think like, oh, it must be easy. You just sit down, talk for an hour or two, and then you're done. But no, like, for example, this is all the notes I have just for this podcast, where I had to sit down and think like, what's logical? What would be interesting? How does it flow? There's things that you can't anticipate. Like if your guest, for example, starts talking about something that's ahead of your schedule, you can't just be like, oh, hey, can you just like, talking and we'll get to that later. Like, you got to go with the flow.
For sure. I think that it helps that we're similar to us. You are like an unscripted, in a sense, podcast. So you're not one of those people who's writing out an entire story. Like, can you imagine trying to put together Dan Carlin? Have you ever heard of Dan Carlin?
No, I can't say I have.
Oh, you have to check this guy out. So he has a podcast called Hardcore History. I think they're not on Spotify or iTunes. You have to get it through his website. Some of them are free, but some of them are paid. But he's a history expert and puts in, I've heard like 40 hours of work into one episode. But he is such a good storyteller. The history is all extremely accurate and obviously took a lot of research. But just an amazing high production show. Highly recommend that. I'm not even a huge history guy, and I listened to the whole Wrath of the Khan series about Genghis Khan and all this stuff. It was fascinating. So cool. But yeah, that would take so much work to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is nowhere near the same thing, but like, I remember when I started doing sort of, because I also do episodes that aren't just interviews, they're like topics where or I have my co-host Dutch Deals that, we talk at length about a topic, and I really have to approach it in a different way. I have to look at like different angles, like how can this flow? Like I did an episode on university, for example, and I remember recording it one time without much of a plan. And this, bear in mind, this is like an hour and a half of me talking, and I was like, this is trash, and I deleted it. Came back to it a week later, because I'm like, I'm sure as hell not doing it again right after I've just done it. Came back to it with a much more sort of planned out plan, if that's terrible. And it came out a lot better. And I've said this on the podcast before, so sorry guys for saying this again. But I think it really does kind of go to show that like the level of effort that you put into something will ultimately determine how well that content comes out. And you're right, that being a good storyteller is is a really important part of that. Like I feel like for interviews, obviously, as you said, mine is more of a kind of a casual kind of approach, but every guest is different. Sometimes it will be just a straightforward interview. And I'm always kind of a little bit on edge every time I have a new guest on, because I just don't know how they're going to be. Like maybe it's a really easy conversation, maybe it's not, you know, and it's my job to kind of make sure it goes well. And that can be tricky at times. But you know, I think as long as you can kind of always look at yourself and kind of say, okay, I can tweak this, I can work on this, and you kind of adjust to your guest. Make sure you're always adjusting to your guest. And as you said before, having like some sort of a narrative or flow with your work really helps.
Yeah. I mean, preparation is definitely a huge part of that, but don't sell yourself short either. I mean, you have obviously the skill to do that. You have to be able to hold a good conversation, be an interesting person, adapt to who you're speaking to. And obviously you've got that nailed. So,
but you can totally tell. You deserve it. Stop it. But you can totally tell. Like I listen to a lot of podcasts for like educational purposes, schooling. I think awesome for traveling and taking time to study and learn while you're doing it. And I've gone through like maybe 5 or 6, and some of them, it's like, oh, this person's not prepping. They're just sitting down and talking about a topic. And in the flow, they get off topic. They're always, oh, I forgot to say that. I should jump back and say that. And then you're like, this is really unorganized. Like it's like a terrible lecture. And then you have the people that are like, you clearly put in the time to make this flow properly. And those are the ones that you're going to listen to because it's great. Like people, you're getting something out of it. And whether it's school and learning or music or education or anything, like to have that plan. Yeah. You have to have it. You have to have a plan for sure.
I think that was a lesson I learned this year. I can't remember if it was through my vlogs or through the podcast, but yeah, you're bang on with that. It's the thing that I always pay attention to is the key thread of like what's being discussed at that one point, and making sure to always try and steer back to that. Like I'm a big fan of professional wrestling, right? And I always kind of look at it like, think of it like it's a wrestling promo. You hate scripted promos, but you know that every promo has to have some bullet points and has to have a key thread. What are you trying to say? What's the topic? You got to come back to that. Because as you say, if you go off on too much of a tangent, I mean, your audience, you know, will kind of oblige and will let you do that. But after a while, it's like, oh, what? He was talking about that like 25 minutes ago or whatever. Like, come on, man.
Exactly.
But at the same time, on the flip side, like if you got a really good conversation going and then you just interrupt your guest and just start talking about like, oh, hey, I know we were talking about this, but let's get back to, you know, the main event. Like,
and ours can get like that too, where we go off on tangents and we allot that space at the beginning of the show for just whatever, just randomness. And what ends up happening, most people probably wouldn't know this, but it ends up being sometimes an hour of us talking about who knows what, and then it's my job then to go in and edit that down.
Oh no!
I do post editing like you wouldn't believe. No, I don't want to go off for an hour about something random. We've got 3 songs to review. So, you know, but if we talk for an hour, I might try and cut that down, or I might think, okay, this piece was really funny. Let's keep that. But let's, you know, we've had a few discussions that we've basically while we're recording gone, we can't use this. Totally inappropriate.
Like, and I think when we were first starting, we were kind of predicting shows to be between like 40 to 50 minutes, and the first one was like an hour and a half long, and it was like, okay, so we're going to be able to talk for way longer than we thought. 100%. We're on tangents, and then it's like, okay, none of this is usable. Like someone's going to judge us for this, and in not a good way. So we take that out. Not that we're saying anything too bad, but you know, I think that when you're putting something out there for social media, and you know, you have careers, and you have to certainly be conscious of what you're saying, and that's something that's important to us, like to not offend anyone. And and it's hard when you get on tangents and you're making jokes and you're not being inappropriate per se, but it's like we want to make sure that everyone's happy with the content.
It's like comics though. It's like what comics do, right? So are perpetually pushing the boundaries a little bit to try and get laughs and get a reaction out of whoever you're chatting with. And that can be taken out of context really easily. So we might just keep pushing each other, and then one of us says something that's totally ridiculous, and we realize like, oh yeah, this probably shouldn't be on the show.
It's like, oh, where's the line? Where's the line? Where's the line? Oh, there's the line. Oh shit, let's go back.
Exactly. And we have no like, at least comics have their like fan base and their celebrity to kind of be like, oh wow, that was bold, and then everyone laughs and goes, yeah, that's just them. But they're like, 8th episode, they're gonna be like, who the fuck are the Hirst brothers? And these guys are dicks.
That's an interesting factor, actually. Yeah, like how celebrities kind of get a free pass for a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously we have cancel culture now, which is emerging, but yeah, it takes a lot for people. Yeah, it's interesting how certain people get forgiven, but then other people don't. Like, I've always found that dynamic weird. It's like,
totally.
What?
And like comedians and not supporting at all, but like a comedian can make a totally racist joke and everyone laughs and it's like, oh, okay, that's funny. And then it's like, but like a podcaster making a racist joke, it's like, well, that's not acceptable.
On this topic, actually, just because it's topical, the Scottish comedian Frankie Boyle recently sort of had like a pop at Ricky Gervais over going too far with jokes, which I just thought in general was hilarious, because if you know anything about Frankie Boyle, you know what his humor is like, right? And I was so happy with Twitter, because a lot of the time when I look at Twitter comments, it's like, you never really know like what the public opinion is, but everyone was like, hang about, you were making jokes like 10 years ago on this sort of stuff. Like, you can't say that to him. Like, come on, that's audacious at best. Come on, like.
Yeah.
And that's what comedy's all about. It's not, there's no truth to what you're saying. It's just, you're just trying to make the other person laugh. Yeah, there shouldn't be. When there is, it's a different story. But yeah, a lot of times we're just trying to get each other going, and sometimes it goes to ridiculous places. But
it's usually not inappropriate. It's just like, I don't think people want to hear that.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say that one of the things you said, like about obviously like sort of sticking to like a time limit, like, maybe it's going to be 45 minutes or whatever. Like, it's taken me a while to figure out kind of how long. And I don't truthfully have a limit. I just look at like, how long my guest has and how the conversation is going. And, my podcasts have ranged anything from 30 minutes up to 3 hours in some cases. But, I will say that, like I've experienced this through going on other people's shows, that it really sucks sometimes when someone has a very strict schedule. Like, okay, it's only half an hour. Like, I was on someone's podcast the other day and we were having a really good time. I was really enjoying the conversation. And then it was like half an hour and he's like, okay, we're going to call a wrap. And I'm like, really? I feel like we just got started. Like, what?
Yeah.
But everyone's different, aren't they?
And that goes, I feel like with that restraint too, you're going to get to the point where you're on a good talk and then you have to quickly like rein in and be like, okay, so I have to ask you this question because I don't want to go over my 30 minute. Or my 30 minute limit. Exactly.
I feel like it's better to just let it happen and then figure out what to do with it afterwards. Do you know what I mean?
Which circles back to what you were bringing up earlier, but it's not just that easy. You don't just record a conversation and throw it out there. You spend hours in post editing. And then, even thinking about what I was saying that we want to do next with adding video to it. Well, it's okay. So if I take an hour and 30-minute long recording and then cut out bits and pieces along the way and turn it down to turn it down to an hour. Now I've got to cut the video too to match. That's tough to do. Maybe there's a really easy way to do it where you can edit the video and the audio all in one take, but I've not yet figured that out. So that would take me hours to get that done.
Yeah, I mean, I hate editing personally. It's the bane of my life. And like, I've said I said on a stream that I did the other day, like one of my friends online was going, "Oh, you should get into editing or help your viewing." And I'm like, look, when I have the money, I'll pay someone to be my editor. I'm not doing that shit.
Yeah.
Luckily, I'll do it for the podcast because I have to. It's easy to cut up clips and that. But as you say, like getting creative with stuff, and the more time you put into it, it's just. It's a whole kind of I don't want to say industry, but like it kind of is in a way, like just editing in general.
Yeah, there's a team of people that work behind anything we watch on TV, anything we see on the big channels on YouTube. Those the Dude Perfect guys, they're not sitting there for 6 hours editing those videos after. They've got a team of people who are doing that, who are skilled at it. So yeah, being able to do a little bit of it yourself, I think, is valuable, but goes back to what we were saying earlier, like, know your strengths. If you're really good at podcasting and creating content, put your effort into that. And then eventually you can pay somebody else to take care of the nitty gritty stuff that you don't want to do.
This is something I can't wait for the day that I can have it. No, for real, because I'll be able to do so much more. Because for me,
for sure,
easy part, you do your research. Like, I would happily just do my research, do the podcast, and be like, okay, here you go edit this. I'm going to go enjoy myself, rather than spending the next day having to edit this. Because once this podcast is done, that's what I'll be doing. I'll be editing. And it's fine. Like, I love to do podcasts, but it's like, as you say, you play to your strengths, you play to what you're good at, what you enjoy doing as well. I think if you don't enjoy doing it, then that can sort of make the whole process kind of lackluster, and you're just like trying to do it just to get it done. And that's not really how it should be, really, in retrospect.
Completely agree. We've taken the same kind of idea to music as well. So we record everything ourselves. I'm still learning, and obviously this is a long journey for mixing and mastering music, but I've gotten a lot better, but I'm still at the point where I don't really get the sound that I'm looking for when mixing our music. And so now we've just started outsourcing that. So we'll record everything. I'll put together a really rough demo of, okay, this is how I want it to all come together, and send it over to somebody who knows what they're doing, who works in a studio, and just let them mix it. And then I work with them back and forth to tweak certain things that I may or may not like. And then, we can focus on songwriting and recording.
And exactly, like you were just saying, touching back on that, as soon as you are able to do that, and it's not like, we're certainly not paying like high-end professionals to do it. Like, these are people that are starting out with mixing, that their passion is mixing. So it's like, great, we can work together. But as soon as it's like, well, instead of learning how to mix for another 8 hours of the day, we can start making another song.
Yes.
Like, you can same with you. Instead of, when you get to that point, instead of spending the rest of the day editing, you can do another podcast. You can start the research for the next podcast. So as soon as you get to that level, you get to really focus on what you're enjoying, and really putting more time into that. So just a waiting game, long haul.
Yeah. Can't wait for that day. Yeah, let's move it on now. You mentioned music. Let's talk about music. You guys obviously in a band. How did you first get into music? Like, where did it all begin for you guys?
Oh, geez.
Want me to start and then pass
you
it
can
off?
start. Yeah.
It all began with
it all began with No, we had a piano in our house, and I think we both grew up with like starting. I don't know what age you begin piano at, but 7. Like 4 years old, 5 years old, whatever the age might be. And our parents aren't particularly musical. Like, they love music, but they don't play instruments. So I don't know why, but we grew up playing piano. Kind of went through that phase of piano's not cool anymore, quit piano. John got into guitar a lot earlier. I didn't really get on that train until like mid-university.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I got back into piano a lot more too, when it was like, I can learn it on my own terms with YouTube, songs that I want to play. Like, and that's where I was struggling with piano. Like, we're learning to play classical music, and that's just not something that I get excited about. And then maybe like 3rd, 4th year university was when I really got back into guitar, like taught myself guitar from YouTube pretty much. Joined a band in university, and then when I graduated, and now I'm back in university, but that's kind of what brought us to this point where we started like being like, wow, we should probably just write our own stuff and put together our own music now.
So you sort of like jammed when you were younger, but then this was like the first time you're like, hey, maybe we should do something a bit more professional.
Yeah, well, I mean, the bands I was in university, like, we have 2 EPs and a full album put out. So it was like, but it was kind of like, it was all my good buddies, and we were having fun doing it. And it was kind of our entire spare time was just put towards like playing live music and recording and writing songs.
But in terms of like you guys specifically, like what?
Yeah. So
exactly.
I came into that story later. So again, as Mark mentioned, I picked up guitar at a really young age, got really into guitar, played it forever, put all the hours in when I was young, which was great. And then basically focused on really solo kind of isolation music. When I was in university, I was playing like looping a lot. So using a looper, trying to cover songs by myself, ended up buying a drum kit, taught myself how to play drums. And it was really just all about me. Never really jammed with anybody else and wasn't even totally confident singing at that point. And then it wasn't until, we graduated university. Mark had his band. I think they came up to our cottage once and played some music and was like, why don't you play with us? I'm like, all right, I'll play with you guys. Cool. And then we just realized how much fun that was in itself, jamming and playing live.
Yeah.
So we started to grow, and then I started diving hard into that world of live music, and we got all the gear, we got the PA systems, brought everything up to the cottage, and it just evolved from there. Started our charitable organization where we do live concerts for raising money for fighting blindness.
Oh, cool.
So that's something we do usually twice a year, but this year we just did one virtually. So we have all our friends over, play a huge cover show, raise a bunch of money, send it off to a great charity to support vision research. And then, it basically a year ago, we decided we should probably just write our own music. And then I dove down that rabbit hole head first, jumped into, bought Logic, started buying all the gear that I needed and learning how to mix. And we're a year into it, basically writing our own music.
Pretty.
Talk me through your songwriting process, because I think every musician has a different way they do it. Bowie famously used to cut up pieces of newspaper and put it together, and that's how he made his lyrics. And I'm pretty sure some drugs were involved too. But for you guys, like, what's your process?
So I'll start this one because we have a very different process for two different styles of music, which I guess our fans have yet to hear. So the first couple songs that we did was very much just a learning situation. So, figured out what works for us, just wrote a couple cool licks. Mark's in Ireland. I would say, hey, he'd record something on his guitar, maybe a lick or riff or a chord progression, send it to me. I'd record drums on it, then send it back to him. He records bass, and we just kind of conglomerate this mess of a song. And then at the very end, the lyrics get written in like 5 minutes. Because
okay.
I did a lot of like freestyle rapping and stuff like that. So it just really, really quickly improv, just throw down a couple of verses and a chorus and see what happens.
Do you sort of like, because what I tend to do, like my songwriting process has changed over the years in terms of like, it used to be lyrics have to be written first, come in, and then write the song, right?
Yeah.
And always like, and sometimes I still do that. Like if I have some lyrics ready, I'll try and fit them to the song and whatever, right?
Yeah.
But these days, I find myself kind of like, I sit down with my guitar and I do the reverse. I start jamming. I'm like, oh, like this. I start humming. I'm like, and then I think about like how, the music makes me feel, emotion wise or whatever. And then I start riffing like lyrics, and it kind of like, I'm basically writing both at the same time, which is a terrible way to do things, but it works. I don't know, for me. So like, is that kind of what you mean? Like you sort of like, you have everything sort of ready and then you're kind of just jamming and trying to see like what works lyrically, like
Totally.
what makes sense?
Totally. Yeah. Just most of it comes off the top. We didn't really put much thought into the lyrics. I think the latest single that we released, we kind of sat down together, but it was really quick. It was like, hum the melody. Okay. I like the way that sounds. That sounds cool. And then for the words, I'd almost freestyle something where that may not make total sense. And then afterwards we went back and kind of analyzed like, oh, okay, this would make more sense for the theme of the song of what we're trying to build a bit of a story out of the foundation that we've got laid. And then that one came together like that. Now we're working on a new EP. We've got 4 songs in the works, and they're very much hip hop influenced, which is totally a left-hand turn from what we were doing, which was more of your indie rock style. So we've done real instrumentation, real music that could be played live, but then that catchy, almost pop-like choruses with a lot of layers, and then just rapping, just hip-hop rapping as the verses. And it's been a lot of fun, but none of that is written either. It's just very much freestyled.
Cool. How does being siblings affects, your songwriting, gigging together, being, obviously, as you mentioned, you've been in different projects as well outside of this, but like, you know, often we hear about famous sibling rivalries, like Oasis, for instance, in the UK, you know, famously the Gallagher brothers were at each other's throats. And some people would argue that creates very good music as a result, and also creates, you know, problems as well. Like, you guys seem like you're very close and like there's not really any issues ever. But like, do you ever kind of find contrasts or things there that don't exist, you know, outside of you know, working together or anything like that?
Wow. Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like we're both just really similar and we like the same style of music.
That's what I was going to say.
Like, and so no, like there's really never any conflict between us. It's kind of like, and we're really, half the time, you know, we'll sit down, start making a song. We both like, oh yeah, do that again. Like, I like what you're doing there. Record that down. Yeah, what if you do something like this? And then after 2 hours, it might be like, all right, let's put that aside and just start with something new, because we both just weren't really feeling it, right? Like, it's just, so we always just, I don't know. I think it's just, we're excited about everything we're doing. And yeah, there's never like, you know, and if it's something I really want to try, like, I think this bass line's really cool, let's try and mix it in somewhere, then it's like, all right, let's see what we can do. Like, there's never like,
and we had that one track even that we recorded like we have hundreds of songs that we've recorded and then stopped and not gone anywhere with, and maybe we'll touch back on those another day or whatever. But we had that one that you weren't a huge fan of. You kind of forgot about it, and then I took it one day as an inspiration and then put a ton of work into it and built it up, and then showed it back to you, and you're like, I don't even remember doing this. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then the same thing might happen otherwise, where Mark will be in Dublin and he'll put together a whole song from something that we did or from just an idea he had, and he'll send it to me and I'll be like, wow, that's amazing. Let's go with that. So we just really are super open-minded, and we use each other's contributions, and we both can do it on our own too. So if we wanted to, I can write a song, he can write a song, I might like it, I might add to it, or we might decide as a team, yeah, let's scrap this project.
Yeah, we'll look back in a few years.
How do you communicate to each other? Like, if one of you really sort of likes the song and one of you hates it or isn't feeling it, obviously, as you said, you guys got a really good relationship by the sound of things. And, you know, as you said, you're open-minded. So I'm guessing, obviously, the communication is very laid back and chilled and quite easy, right? But, like, obviously, it's never nice having to be constructive. You can obviously put it in a nice way. That's always something you can do that I think a lot of people forget about. But how do you kind of voice that? How do you say, hey, I'm not really feeling this, or, you know, I hate this? Like, how do you voice that to each other?
I think exactly how you just said it. It's like so simple. Like, we're not going to get offended by what someone says. No. So like, we were doing something yesterday. John put in this little like horn section. I'm like, I wasn't feeling it. Didn't say much. Maybe it'll add when we add some other stuff. 20 minutes later, it was like, John, I'm not feeling that horn section. I think we got to pull it or change it, do something. And then it's just like, yeah, you know what? You're right. And at the end of the day, like, I don't think we want to release any music where one of us isn't happy about it. So like, if I put in a riff and John's like, I don't know how I feel about that, I'm not going to be like, oh, come on. It's like, maybe I'll use it in another project. Maybe I'll use it somewhere else. But if you don't like it and we're not feeling the song together, then we're not going to release the song.
It's such a refreshing attitude to have, I must say. This brings back a lot of memories for me. I mean, I think when I first started being in a band, I was a bit of a hard case. I was like the leader, so I was really like getting on everyone's case about things. And I definitely know that I could have voiced things better. But one thing I was proud of is that I always allowed everyone to just give it a try. Even if I didn't feel what they were doing, I was like, well, we should just try this idea and see how it sounds with what we're doing and stuff. But yeah, like the way you voice things, like what you just said there is the perfect way to voice that. You say, hey, well, maybe we won't use it for this project. Maybe we'll use it for something else. And like, just how you communicate these things. Because I think a lot of the time people forget how personal music is. And like, because it's essentially like an expression of the soul, isn't it? In a way, it's kind of like a creative kind of expression of yourself. So if someone goes, that's shit, it's like there's almost like they're saying you're shit, and even though you know that's not what they mean, it's how it feels.
I think it's like unwritten, kind of what Mark was saying. It's like an unwritten code between us that neither of us wants to put anything out that the other person's not stoked on.
Yes.
So if he doesn't totally love the song, even if maybe I've put 20 hours into mixing and recording this track and I send it to him and he's like, yeah, I don't really like that, then I wouldn't put it out. we would
I think
just
it's got to be band majority, isn't it? You got to have like if 3 out of 4 love it and one guy hates it, you take the majority. But if it's like,
and
if
we
it's
only have
split, it's like,
There's only
we
two of
only
us.
have 2, so it's like,
oh,
hey.
easy.
Well,
We both
I mean,
like
we
it or
have
we don't.
our drummer that plays with us, but he just plays with us, so we write the music, and it's like,
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, if we both don't like it, then it's not going out. We change something, right?
Fair enough. Just very briefly, I want to mention one thing about the podcast, but it's more to do with the music side of things. How has the podcast actually benefited your music in terms of promotion and networking and stuff? I know we've touched on this a little bit before, but I just want to focus on your music specifically.
Yeah, great question. I mean, it's really early. It's too early to tell. And right now, I've not even been watching if our music is growing because we're so focused on what's next and what's upcoming. And so maybe we'll start to see a kick in the way that we promote our new EP. I think we're still probably at least 4 or 5 months out. So we've got a long road ahead of us before we start releasing that. But I think just having it all interconnected makes sense from a future standpoint. So, if you like the podcast, you like us, you kind of like our personalities, you go over to our website where we have all the podcast info, but our own music's also there as well. So you're going to learn a little bit more about the band. And maybe when you go on our YouTube channel and you watch our videos, there's also a separate playlist that's got our own music videos. And maybe you're interested in that as well if you're a fan. Maybe you're not. It doesn't really matter. If we get you in one area, then that's good enough for us. But I think it makes sense, like you said, streaming across as many different platforms as you can, whether it be podcast, music, video content, or even just being on all of the different platforms. I think it makes sense to just push that brand out there.
I think, as well, it's really cool as far as like just being content creators as well. Because that being more kind of likable, I'm not wording this well, building a following through that kind of almost encourages people to check out your music as a kind of like, oh, you guys do music as well. And it's like kind of, do you know what I mean? There's that element to it. I
think I was even saying that the other day, that if there's someone that subscribes to the podcast and they like it, chances are they're going to be like, oh, I want to know who these guys are. Like if I'm going to listen to them, once every 2 Mondays, I'm going to figure out who they are and see. And then you're going to be like, oh, they make their own music. They're probably going to check it out, whether it's their style of music or not. At least there's someone that knows about it and they watched it. And, so that's cool in its own.
It's like I've had different people say to me like, oh, Christian, you should put the podcast on its own, channel. You should do this, you should do that. And I've always said since the beginning of my channel that, it's a variety channel. That's the purpose. Yeah. That's what I see as the vision for it. Because from my perspective, I like this idea of you come on, you don't really know what to suspect. Is there going to be an original song? Is there going to be a cover song, an acting video, a podcast episode? Like, you don't know. Like, I like that element to it. But it's, as we were just talking about, I like this kind of idea that if someone really likes the podcast or really likes my acting videos and they subscribe and follow stuff for that, then they might check out the other stuff. And, because I think that, for example, like, you guys aren't always going to be writing music every day. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same with me. I'm not doing acting stuff 24/7. So it's always like what's happening in the moment. And sometimes certain things get neglected a little bit at a certain time. You always come back to them, but like you're sort of focusing in the moment on what's going on. So you kind of want your audience to kind of move with you with everything you do. And as you said before, like kind of subscribe to that brand, build that brand, and then people subscribe to that. And they're not just focused on like, oh, hey, why aren't you guys uploading covers, or why haven't you done this or whatever,
For sure. I mean, people don't remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel. And that's what brands play on so hard. It's not really just about the content that you're looking at. It's the experience that you get when you're watching it. So whether it's music, whether it's podcast, content, acting, whatever it is, you can have that all in the same brand, all in the same bucket. And if you've got a true believer and someone who enjoys that experience and they enjoy how you make them feel, they're sold, they're hooked. And you've got a fan, a real fan.
It's like whenever
we're hoping for one fan. One day we want one real fan.
I'm sure you have many fans already, man.
Yeah, we do. Not many, but we've got some good fans. I can't tell those people short.
We're fucking huge.
A couple.
You heard of us? Yeah, I was gonna say about how with like, you know, Coca-Cola does that, you know, the brand, you know, I can't remember the last time they actually did an advert where like one of the people in the advert says, hey, would you like a Coca-Cola? Like they might like sort of hand it symbolically, but it has fuck all to do with the product. It's all pretty much about, you know, as you say, building the brand, building the story, building something that people can subscribe to in some shape or form. Like I think that's what people are always looking for in general, is something relatable, something they can kind of, something that makes them, as you said, like makes them feel something.
That's what everybody wants. You just want to feel something. And that can go any way.
Yeah, take it how you want.
Oh, I got such a dirty mind, man. I knew it was a special moment, but I was like, this is funny.
This is why we have a lot of cuts on our episode, because we don't hold back.
Oh, I keep everything in, man. This is staying in.
Beautiful. Noted.
Tell me about your worst gigging experience, your worst show ever, or some worst stories ever.
You go first.
Oh boy.
Uh,
You suffer first. I'm saving mine.
Yeah. Well, okay, this wasn't the worst because it was cool, but it's along those lines. And kind of just a funny / if you were trying to be gigging, a terrible experience. We played, so after COVID, during COVID, me and John were at home for, you know, a few months, and we were like, let's nail, so with full backtrackings, because it was just us. We had all the drums, all the horns, all the background vocals, and we made like, you know, maybe like a 17, 18 song set list that we could play, all covers, all great songs that we liked. And middle of COVID, so we can't have any guests. We go up north. We have the coolest setup on a dock on the lake, set up all the gear, PA, everything. And we played probably an hour and a half, 2 hours straight to my mom, my dad, both of our girlfriends, and that's it. So it wasn't a bad or a fail. It was, but like just something hilarious about hitting that last note to like Beat It by Michael Jackson, being like, whoa, looking at each other, sweating, pumped up, and like two people, way to go, boys, like, woo, and very underwhelming.
Dude, I've been there so many times. Like, true story. My first band's like last show, like this is like, we knew we were breaking up that day, so we put everything into it. But fuck me, man, it was literally my ex-girlfriend, the sound engineer, and I think that's it. And then we were like this heavy metal band trying to get into it. And it's a glorified band practice. Just
those are fun.
Yeah, and that's why I said it's not a terrible experience, because we set it up on purpose, knowing there wouldn't really, like, knowing it wasn't a show, but kind of just a hilarious experience, because playing really hard, getting into it for like 4 people. Good times.
Lots of fun. Yeah, I had a similar experience during COVID this year as well. Set up a live stream by one of the universities. They actually reached out to me and said, would you guys like to play on a live stream? We're going to do a concert for the students. I'm like, fantastic. Yeah, of course. We'd love to. And they go, how much should we pay you? We're like, oh, wow. We don't even need to get paid. I said, do a donation in our name to the charity that we work with. They're fantastic, right? So Mark couldn't make it because he was in Dublin that night, and I was like, I'll play. And it was late at night, so you would have had to wake up at
3 a.m.
2 a.m. or 3 a.m. to play. So I'll play for you guys, no problem. I played a live stream for an hour in front of 4 people. I didn't do any of the promoting. The school did it, and he goes, yeah, in retrospect, it was a pretty busy time for students. A lot of them had midterms and exams. It's probably bad timing. I'm like, all right. Very odd, especially nobody in front of you, nothing. You're just playing live music, which I guess I do on my own anyways. But yeah.
Do you know, I think there's this unspoken thing that exists, because like every single band ever, when they start out, it's always the same thing. You end up playing either to other bands, sound engineer, girlfriends, family, whatever, like basically no one, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's this kind of, I like to call it the no one gives a fuck about you concept, where as soon as you get just like known a little bit, it just flip reverses. So like a good example of this, right? I remember seeing this clip, which you can find online. It's Rage Against the Machine's first ever gig. I implore everyone to go check it out.
I may have seen it.
It's them playing And they do have an audience, to be fair, right? But they're playing at like a university. It's their first time gigging, and I shit you not, it's like any other show they ever play. It's just amazing. And there's legit, I mean, there is an audience, but there's like, what, probably 10 people there or whatever. Most people just walking past. And I'm like, it's fucking Rage Against the Machine. And you're walking past. And of course, like, no one knew who they were then, right? They were nobodies. I get that. But still, the music was fantastic. And I put it down to this concept. It's not even about how good you are. You can be amazing. It doesn't matter. Until you are known, and people are sort of like talking about you because your name keeps popping up places, or they saw you on a TV, or they saw you in this place, people will just walk by. You can be amazing, and the people won't care. It's only when something really unique, like, I don't know, you see a 10-year-old singing on the street and he's got the voice of an angel or some shit, maybe then you pay attention if it goes viral. But other than that, most of the time, being a band is a slog in the beginning, and it's mostly like 2 to 3 years of being nobody, and then maybe you make it.
For sure. And then there's those people that made it but maybe aren't amazing, and then they have all fans who are signing up. Oh my god, I'm going to go see a concert with so and so. You don't even know who that person is. You haven't listened to any of their music. You're just hyped up because of the name, and they're not even that good. That happens too.
That's the word. Oh, do you know, I remember seeing are you familiar with the metal band Dragon Force?
I know from one of my buddies is from just outside London, UK as well. Like
Okay,
Adam, and he's a big fan. Yeah.
Okay.
But not a huge. I don't know, but he's definitely showed me some of their stuff.
Okay. Sorry to Adam. I'm going to shit on Dragon Force now.
Oh, that's okay.
So basically, back in the day, in about 2007, this video game came out, Guitar Hero 3. And their song was on it, Through the Fire and the Flames. And everyone was going nuts because it was like, just really fast, speedy solos. It sounded amazing, right? We were all blown away. We were all like, 13-year-old kids going, oh my God, this is amazing, right? Yeah. Now, there's this super show in London. I grew up in London, right? And it had everyone. It had Machine Head, Trivium, Shadows Fall, some other band, I can't remember, but and Dragon Force. They weren't headlining, but they were just playing live. As like the second or third bill. And we were all pumped because of the hype of the band. We really didn't know what to expect. They come on stage. Now, okay, I'm going to be fair. Herman Lee was exceptional. The rest of the band, utter trash. I don't understand what was going on there. Maybe they were having a bad day. I don't know. But they were awful. And the crowd booed them, which is the first time I've ever seen that at a show ever. Because normally you just give a band the benefit of the doubt. But if it's a big band and you paid money to be there, I kind of get why people get angry, right? And they were literally being booed off the stage. And they were supposed to have like a 30-minute set. I think they left after like 15 minutes. And it was the only time in my life I've heard the singer and the band say, "You're the worst crowd we've ever played to. We're leaving. Fuck you." And they walked off. And we all cheered when they left. And then I think like Trivium came on next and everyone lost their mind.
For sure.
But it's a perfect example of like, I don't know how, I mean, I don't want to say that they're totally bad because I don't think that's really true. But I think that like, you do need to be on top of your game, If you've,
and the hype outweighed the performance.
Yeah, I mean, let's give a more fair example. There are a lot of pop musicians out there who, everyone says is amazing. But when you hear them live, they're out of tune. And I think that is just unacceptable. They don't have to be the most amazing singer of all time, but they need to be in tune. They need to be sounding how they at least sound on the records, because otherwise it's like false advertisement. It's like misleading. Yeah,
I think that's a talent in itself, is being able to like reproduce the music that you put on. And to me, I would never want to put out a record where you couldn't reproduce it to an acceptable quality. And then maybe you're just not a touring band. If you can't do that, like, you shouldn't be having people pay for money to come watch you live if you cannot perform your music.
But I just think that's kind of nonsensical in a way. Like, I completely agree with you, but I do feel that like maybe this only applies to like musicians that, and forgive me for this, but like don't use instruments, like just do everything by computer. Because I feel like bands, like, you play the songs together, you write the songs together, you learn the songs, and then when you go to the studio, it's essentially just the best representation of that. But like, for example, when I did my first metal record, there were some songs that had like very high vocal notes in it. And
Yeah.
obviously they sound very polished on the record, right? But I could hit those notes, and I put a lot of time and effort into hitting them. And there's videos online of me doing it. And I was always proud of that. And I took a lot of pride in that. And I always worked on it to try and make it as good as I possibly could. But in my mind, I thought, I can't put out a record where I can't sing like that. That's just false. That's like, people are just going to come see us. And at a point where you're trying to build yourself, if people come and see you and they go, oh, it doesn't sound like what was on the record, like what's going on there? Like, exactly. I don't know. It's just bizarre to me, that idea.
The thing is, though, everybody has a number. So if Warner Brothers Music comes to you and they're like, Christian, we're going to give you $50 million, you're not even going to sing on the album. You're basically going to be Britney Spears. You're going to have no talent whatsoever, and we're going to fake the entire thing, and you're going to be a sensational superstar. There's a number where most people will budge. You might be like myself. I probably would rather take my own life than deal with that.
I would turn it down because for two reasons, right? And I know people will be like, oh, bullshit, come on, man, everyone's got a number. Like, but you got to look at it like this: like, you're essentially selling your soul.
100%.
Like, you look at how fucked Britney Spears is right now, like her situation, like that industry owns her, which is crazy to think about. But like, and this is why, like, I've spoken to other musicians about this on the podcast before, why, you know, I think it's just not worth signing with major labels anymore. Like, it's much better to be an independent musician 100%. And get like a distribution deal for your stuff. Because if you go for a record label, like, what you're forgetting is they're a business and they want to make money off of you. They're not trying to make you money. They're trying to make money off of you. And they will give you a deal where they make the most of the money, which you're writing the songs, you're writing the music. Like, okay, yeah, you gave the example of a situation where they give you a big amount and yeah, you don't have any involvement in the situation. But like, in that scenario, they own you and you have to do everything they say. And you're not going to get to enjoy that money. You're probably going to have to spend it just, I don't know, on whatever, like probably self-maintenance, keeping yourself looking the way that you look for however long the contract is. I don't know. Like, it's not going to be all sunshines and daisies. You know, it's going to be hard work. And then when you come out of that contract, you've got nothing to show for it. Like, you don't own your music. And I feel like music, especially these days, is so much more respected when the musician has actually written their work. It's not to say that I'm holding anything against like musicians that don't write their own work. I think that it's a combination of factors. It's the talent of the singer, how they work on their craft, and then the music itself. It's all different elements of a big puzzle. But I do think that you tend to always revere those musicians that write their own work. Like, they're the ones that tend to be remembered more and revered more because just of how, I suppose, you know, the songwriting thing is, you know, for some people it comes naturally, for other people it's not so easy. And I think that's probably where the element of like, you know, the admiration maybe comes from.
Yeah. And I think you connect with those people more too. Like when this is your work, this is your story. Like every song, I'm a big believer myself. Like first round through listening to a song, I just kind of like sit and think about it. Like listen to a couple instruments, but just think about how that makes me feel. Where would I want to be listening to this song? And when I know that they wrote it themselves, it's their music, this is what they wanted to release, that's just awesome because I'm looking at them for that inspiration rather than, oh, this is a beautiful song, but like, you don't mean really anything to me because you're just singing it or something. And you know, I applaud you on a fantastic voice, but that's just like you said, that's one part of it. And to me, the music is way more than just having a great voice.
Totally.
Couldn't agree more. And one of the things that you mentioned there was inspirations, which leads me on to my next question. Who are your musical inspirations?
Oh boy. So many. We listen to so many different types of music. For me,
that's the right answer.
Yeah. If I had to pick two artists, you may not have even heard of either of them. One, John Butler Trio.
Yes. Amazing band.
Guitar player. So talented, so skilled. Sounds exactly like the record. I went and saw him live last year. He sounds perfect and just incredibly skilled. Probably one of the best guitar players in the world. So I'm Yeah, huge John Butler Trio fan. And then number 2 would be a kind of a newer guy, Shaky Graves. Have you heard of him?
I haven't heard of him, no.
Got to check him out.
Yeah.
Extremely talented.
How do you spell that?
Shaky, like my hand is shaky from too much coffee.
Shake, and then Graves, as it sounds, Graves. So yeah, he's from Austin, Texas, or Houston, Texas, I believe.
Austin,
I gotta say, I've had musicians on the sorry to interrupt here, but I've had
No,
so many musicians on my show from Texas. There's something about Texas and music and culture. Like seriously, man.
Well, they love their music, and there's probably like 80 million people in Texas.
Yeah.
So you got a good shot.
And nothing else to do.
But no, that would have been one of mine. And I don't think this is inspiration for like where do we try and base our music off, but it's inspiration as like a whole. Like our music doesn't sound anything like theirs, but it's kind of just like them as a person and how true they are about their music and how passionate they are about it and how they have their style and they just go with it and they absolutely love it. Shaky Graves was one of the most incredible people I've ever seen live. His band music is fantastic, but he does lots of songs he does dual kick drum and like a tambourine with his feet while playing guitar. Wow. And
incredible,
it's unbelievable.
Literally
and
a one-man band then.
He is so good. And so you see these YouTube videos and it's like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Like he does Audio Tree live and it's some of the coolest performances I've seen. And then in Dublin, my girlfriend was like, knows I'm a huge fan. He came to Dublin. It was like 120 euros. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't afford that. I'm a student. So
Dublin is as expensive as it is. Like,
I'm struggling. And but so Ryanair flight, 15 euros and a 15 euro ticket to go see Shaky Graves and a 30 euro Airbnb for the night in Brussels. So one night to Brussels for what I mean, maybe what was that, $55, 65 euros. And so I was like, all right, you know what, that's doable. And I get to see Brussels. And it was 25 people in this bar. And in Texas, he'll play to 70,000 people, 80,000.
Oh my God, that's the best kind of show to have.
Nobody knew, only the 25 people knew who he was, and no one, obviously, because it was incredible.
Did you get to meet him?
Oh yeah, we were talking with him, drinking some pints with him. It was unbelievable, and by far, I was just like, "That's the coolest musical experience I've ever had in my life."
Fuck yeah,
so
man!
Huge inspiration on him. He just everything about him, and like I said, not the music, but just everything about what he does for music and how he approaches music and writing music in his band is that is an inspiration.
Check them out.
Yeah,
I will. For me, music is a gift. Like, I know that sounds all cringy, but what I mean by that is because I got an open mind like you guys, and my music interests and what I listen to is literally everything, all different genres. But as far as inspiring my playing style and my songwriting, it comes down to the same factors, like the way a person thinks, the way they approach it, whatever. Yeah,
but absolutely.
Just to mention too, I believe Shaky Graves tried to start his career as an actor as well. So you might really connect with him on that level. I think he was doing acting in Broadway and he was really trying to get into that.
Right.
And he tells this crazy story about how he busted out his guitar at a campfire. And it was just this musical experience and journey. And that was what really got him more down the track of pursuing music as a career rather than acting. Really, really cool, interesting guy.
I imagine he probably had a lot of adoring women looking at him at the campfire, going, and he was like, "There's something to this,
Yeah. I've never had Broadway.
I play, and the women come.
100%.
Oh
have the power. Oh my God. Okay. Back to
and
business.
That's why we're in it.
Tell me about your best gigging experiences.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell a quick one, then you give one. Unfortunately, mine we've had some awesome experiences together, but I'm going to tell one before with my previous band.
I got to do a bathroom break too, so you tell this. I'll be right back.
Perfect. So with my previous band, we had this unique scenario where at our university, there was this kind of lodge. And it's a city, but it was this lodge, all wooden cabin. And for about 10 years, it's been given to students who love music, who are passionate about the arts. And those people, like, you kind of like interview to get a spot at living in this house, and total like open roof, like double floors with all these wooden beams, and then massive stage, and we throw concerts in there, and all the money is like raised for charity, donated back to the community. And so when I like kind of learned guitar in like third year, I was kind of hanging out with this new friend who's now my best friend, and he was the singer-songwriter. And then it kind of all collaborated in fourth year with like drummer, a violinist, and we had the final show after my graduation at this concert. And then so my buddy lived there, which essentially was like I lived there, and we had this concert, and it was unbelievable. Like, it was like the first, like, wow, I feel like a rock star. Like, everyone is pumped. None of us are wearing shirts. There's like 400 people jammed into this lodge. And I think the music went really well. Like, and everyone was just so excited and so happy. So by far, that was just like the coolest musical experience I've had personally.
Sounds awesome, dude.
Yeah,
Everyone's got that one show, haven't they, where it's like, yeah, man, that was a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for me, it was our last charity concert, the concert for the blind that we did. It was just an all-around great show. We learned some lessons along the way on how much we need to set up, what we need, like how, structured the whole show needs to be. We had someone, we had our engineer there who was really, really talented. So it just sounded really good. It was one of the first times where I was really happy with the sound we were getting. It sounded really good in the room too. And I remember playing one of our funnier songs. I remember playing "Play That Funky Music, White Boy."
Yeah,
we love it too.
We love
that
crowd
song.
pleasers, right? Like, our crowd is all different ages, so it's just songs that people like. So
how can you not like songs like that? Like, I feel like that if you play the classics from like 70s, 60s, like everyone loves that, surely.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, we did a funk set that night, and it was so
we did a bunch of funk songs.
So much fun.
So much fun. I remember singing that song. And you get lost when you're playing and singing, and I'm always trying to remember the words. And I remember singing it and looking up and just seeing like 100 people really dancing and just singing along with me. And I'm like, this is what it must feel like.
Yeah, and shouting, "Play that funky music" back at us, like the recall.
It was like, damn, this feels so good to have the room just loving what you're doing. And it was, you just chase that feeling forever. I want that bigger. How incredible would it feel for somebody as a musician to play a stadium and have 30,000 people singing your song?
I think it's especially cool when you think about like where you wrote the song.
Yeah.
Like, you often hear stories about like musicians like, I don't know, Ed Sheeran, like talking about like, oh yeah, I was playing Wembley to like 100,000 people, and like I wrote this song in my bedroom about some girl I loved, and she broke my heart, blah blah blah. And it's like, it must be crazy. Like, I'm sure he's probably had moments where he's on that stage going like, fuck man.
I bet they all have. I bet anyone who's had that experience, like, I don't think we can comprehend what that feels like.
No chance. Maybe one day.
If it ever happens, then you'll have that chance to be like, oh yeah, this is what I was talking about back in 2020.
And it's way cooler than I could have imagined.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move the conversation over to just like random questions. So
love it.
Don't be scared. It's all just random. But we've mentioned quite a few times Dublin, Ireland, and I just wanted to ask you this because I've been to Dublin, and it's a great place. I encourage everyone after COVID to go there. It's very I don't think it's just a good European city, good people, good alcohol, good times. The Irish are fun.
Agreed.
But there's some weird shit there as well. And I remember the National History Museum in Dublin. Have you been there?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like a smaller building or if it's like just one building, but I walked in there and it was all like taxidermy, like just stuffed animals. It was like everywhere you look was stuffed animals, which is amazing, but like really fucking weird. like
in the window, like you can see like kind of in the basement from the street, and there's like a stuffed leopard or something, and it's like, oh, that's weird. That's unique.
It's just gonna like, because I've seen this everywhere. Like I've been in houses in Europe where like people have like these old century like mansions and they got like a fucking deer's head on the wall or something, and it always freaks me out. I don't care. Like I know people are used to it and stuff, but I get freaked out. It's a dead animal and we hang it on our walls. What the fuck? We're a weird species.
Yeah, we are.
But I just wondered if you'd been there, because I always found that as a bit of a little gem in Ireland. Like
Yeah. I mean, I've been there for almost 5 years now, so
Okay.
I've certainly experienced most of Dublin, and I have been there. I've seen the taxidermy firsthand.
What do you think of like the good and the bad parts about Dublin?
Oh yeah, like I've enjoyed it. I'm almost done. I'm finishing up my schooling in like 4 months, and I'm gonna be sad to leave. Like I think one of the coolest parts is how, like when you said how nice people are, but how social everyone is. Like I love the bar scene mainly because the music is incredible. Like any pub you go into, there's these phenomenal musicians, and I found some incredible guys that I kind of follow on like a local basis, and I'm gonna really miss like not seeing those people play, and you probably can't find them online. Like I think that's just where they are and that's what they do. So
I know what you mean.
Yeah, like maybe go back in 10 years and hope that they're probably still there and just reconnect with that. So like that's something I'm gonna miss. And then on the same side of the other side of the coin, the bars and the partying is just like extreme sometimes, and you see some like ultimate lows of Dublin. And okay, so I'll tell a story, and it's pretty terrible. But we're walking down this bar, and then it was like, oh, let's go to this other one where there's this guy playing. Like I pretty much focus all of the bars and pubs around music, so it's like I know this guy's playing at 9. Let's go check it out. Oh, we'll cut down this alley. And there's just this guy leaning against the wall, taking a shit in the alley. And it's like, oh boy, okay. And it's just like, he doesn't say anything. He looks up, kind of gives you like the nod. I don't know what the nod is, but he gives you, and you just like give him the nod back, carry on through. And by no means, like, I don't think that this individual was homeless. I think it was just like, I gotta go.
Wrecked.
Yeah, like wrecked. Rather do it there than in like their stalls in Dublin are disgusting.
Yeah.
Like I'm less likely to catch a disease or die if I just shit on the stool compared to going to the local toilet.
yeah. Oh God. So lots of those kinds of stories, and I don't know. It's not bad. More comedy for me, but could certainly do without seeing that.
I loved the small. Well, I don't know if it's the smallest bar in the world, but supposedly the smallest bar in the world. I was blown away by that. You literally just walk down the stairs. There is legitimately a bar and like 3 seats, or maybe there's a bit more than that. And then you walk around the bathroom, and then that's it.
Yeah. The in the washroom of that bar, the roof is on a huge angle, and it's padded with a gross mattress because it's so short that people just smash their heads off the roof standing up from the toilet. Crazy.
Wow.
I don't actually fit in that bar. Yeah, like I'm like 6'2", and like I don't fit in that bar. I was hunched over the entire time. It's kind of like drink your pint and get out.
Say you did it. Type
yeah, thing. But no, overall, like I absolutely love Dublin. So it's such a cool place.
Christian, have you been to Canada?
No, I would love to go.
Where would you go?
Well, Toronto, for sure. Probably Montreal, Quebec. Let me think.
I'd go there over Toronto.
Because I'm mainly thinking, I'm a big professional wrestling fan, so I mainly think about like what I've become familiar with that. Probably Niagara Falls. That's in Canada, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. It's like 2 hours away from Toronto.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's weird for me. Like, I feel like one day I'm going to end up in Canada. Because like sometimes how the universe kind of like just throws you signs every now and again. I feel like the universe is trying to say like, hey, you're going to go to Canada. And I'm like, but how? What? Like, I'm cool with that. But like, how is that going to happen? And it's like, just you wait and see, buddy. But
take it and run with it, my friend.
It's the Hirst brothers.
Yeah.
We're bringing you.
We're gonna.
I think what I like about, and this is a little bit controversial, but what I like about Canada is it's kind of like, it's obviously it's got its own culture that is very unique specific to Canada, right? But it's also got like many elements of like American culture as well, and it's kind of like a blend of like America and England, and then its own thing.
Yeah, 100%.
And I like, because I grew up like most kids around the world, you know, wanting to live in America. And as an adult, you know, I've been there and I loved it, but I was like, okay, I don't think I'll be living here, or if I do, it will be very short lived. And now, especially with everything that's happened in the last, you know, couple of years and stuff, I've just kind of concluded that it's not really like, I want to kind of, I don't think you can ever be truly 100% safe anywhere you go in the world, but like there are places that are safer than others. And I think like the idea that, you know, like everyone there owns a gun, and that you could just, shit can happen at any point, is just, it just kind of blows my mind. Because obviously, you know, I'm not saying that in the UK there aren't guns, because there are, but obviously you can kind of go to bed safe in the knowledge that like if you walk down the street, you're not just going to randomly get shot, you know, for no, do you know what I mean? Like it's not really going to happen. Like it could, but it's not going to happen. Whereas in America, that's like, it could happen at any moment for no reason. You know what I mean? It doesn't
more common, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's a certain allure about Canada. Like I've heard a lot of good things as far as like it being having like a good, like a high quality standard of living. So there's obviously that. I seem to recall there was like a couple of years ago, there was like an article about a particular place in Canada where they were actually trying to get people to come there, and they would pay you to come and move there. And
Alberta.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Well,
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure the entire province of Alberta, I could be wrong, so don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure they will pay you to come and live there. There's so much vast space, and they need people working in order for the economy to work. So I don't know if they'll pay you, or they'll just give you some really big incentives, like you pay a lot less tax, you know, your money goes a lot further. You're kind of in the middle of nowhere, but it is beautiful too. You can get right near the mountains. Like Calgary is. It is beautiful.
Calgary, there's one. Yeah, Calgary, Alberta. Yeah, Bret Hart country. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's beautiful too. But there's your sign.
Maybe. I mean, I'm open to it. I mean, I'm currently sort of back in the UK after being abroad for 3 years, so I'm very much in like, I want to be home mode.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, yeah, I'm open to. I mean, it's like all things. I think probably what will happen is I'll meet like a Canadian girl or something, and then it'd be like, hey, should we get married and move to Canada? And I'd be like, why the fuck not? Like, you know,
do it.
Who knows? But anyways, moving it forward, back
Canadians
to you
in
guys.
Dublin. Yeah, come check it out.
It's pretty international where I'm at, actually, in Manchester.
Yeah,
it's kind of blown my mind, actually, because I obviously, you know, it's a university town, so there's always going to be international kind of vibe. But there's a lot of people that just live here, from different countries, and that's really cool to me. Like, even though I grew up in London, obviously it's massively multicultural there. Like, I never really kind of got that vibe as much, or like, at least, I don't know. It didn't seem as prevalent, but I feel like in smaller places, it's like even more prevalent. Like, maybe it's to do with like culture. Obviously with Manchester, it's more well known for like its art and its music and everything. And that's kind of more what I'm into. You know how it is. If you're in that sphere, you kind of attract like particular types of people. So, that's mainly what I look out for. So I'm very open as far as the future's concerned. I kind of just ride the wave and just see what happens, really. You know?
The best way to be.
What do you guys like to do for fun outside of music and podcasting?
Oh boy.
A lot.
Yeah, lots.
Smoke weed every day. No, I'm just kidding. It's legal in Canada, isn't it?
Yeah.
Federally.
Fully legal.
Crazy.
Oh God, we do a lot of stuff. I think number one would be like any sort of sport.
Okay.
Super into sport. So we play a lot of golf.
Golf. Wow, I didn't expect you to say that.
Yeah. I mean, well, we were both like really like ice hockey, football, like American football.
Is lacrosse, is that a Canadian thing as well?
Yeah, very. But you get older, and it's like, I don't want to kill myself anymore. Nor are there leagues that are like, you can play pickup ice hockey and stuff like that. But you know, golf's we both love golf. We live really close to one. We're fortunate enough to be able to go play it. So, and it's like 2 hours, beautiful land, beautiful weather, and you can be competitive with yourself. Like it's so it's kind of keep that competitive outlet.
Golf. Definitely also other hobbies, just even, we're fortunate enough to have a family cottage not too far away from where we live on a lake. So we've grown up water skiing, wakeboarding, sea doing, like water sports are huge for us. Surfing.
Absolutely love it.
Our cousins live out west on the west coast of Canada, and there's a surfing town up there where we get to go and do some cold water surfing. So anything that gets you active and gets you outdoors. We're not like gamers or anything. We don't really sit inside unless we're doing podcasting or music. Otherwise, we're outside doing something fun.
I need to move to Canada, man. Fuck no. Sounds fun. It really does.
Drinking. I mean, if you drink enough,
The
then
occasional
anything's
pint,
fun.
Yeah.
I beg to differ, my friend. Some things, I think it doesn't matter how drunk you get, it's still not fun.
You're not wrong.
What do you guys do for a living? Like, what's your day jobs, if you don't mind talking about it?
Yeah.
Like,
Go ahead, John.
No problem. I work in brands. So, which is kind of what we were talking about.
Advertising?
A lot. Not advertising, more so like brand management and product development.
Okay,
Yeah. So I won't say the company that I work for because I'm not too sure how
sure,
they are, but it's one of the largest brands in Canada. And I've only been doing that for about a year now. Before then, it was I was strictly finance. I worked in the financial industry for 6 or 7 years after university before going back to school to do my MBA.
What was your undergraduate in?
Economics.
Okay, yeah. So you kind of...
I went econ, went finance, and then did an MBA. And my thinking was I'll do an MBA and I'll kind of get deeper into the finance world. And then my MBA actually majored in sustainability. And the more I started learning about that, I started realizing, there's way more at play with products and actual physical items that we're putting into the environment. And I think I have a really unique perspective on how to do that sustainably, naturally, but also still get people involved. And I wanted to be at the forefront of that movement, where I don't know what it's like in the UK now, but in Canada, it's pretty much every major company, McDonald's, A&W, they're all advertising sustainably sourced beef, whatever it is, all natural, that's a huge movement here. Canada actually just banned single-use plastics in the next 4 years. We have to have all single-use plastics eliminated. So I thought this is an exciting industry and it's something I'm kind of interested in. So I jumped kind of head first into that. Too. Yeah, really good timing. That's why I made the switch. I could have been real cozy in the finance industry right now if I wanted to. But yeah, I thought I'd make the switch and do something different. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. And then I'll let Mark go.
Yeah, right on. As of now, no career. I'm in my I'm in my final year of medical school. So
oh wow, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
So finishing that up in like April. And then hopefully I'm doing a bunch of interviews right now. Like I'm in the midst of this whole game of like trying to find a residency position after. So hopefully going back and doing 4 years of training in the States. So back to our living in the States, but they're like in terms of the medical industry, like it's just top notch. Like it's incredible. You're going to just gain training that you might not get. And there's just more opportunities. So hopefully do my 4 years of training in the States, I'm working towards becoming a surgeon and going from there. Then hopefully make my way back to Ontario. So bit of a long road.
Cool, man. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck with that. To both of you guys. Yeah, awesome,
Cheers.
Awesome. Gonna take it up to a more serious tone. I want to ask you kind of like how COVID has affected your lives. Obviously, it's affected us all, but I'm always kind of intrigued as to how my guests are adapting to these things and just generally getting by.
I think we're both pretty similar in the sense that we don't necessarily live in fear, and we don't suffer from any anxiety or anything like that. But I think it's we get the medical system. Like our parents are both medical professionals as well, and so it's trust the system. And everything that we've been doing is let's just follow the rules. I don't want to be that one idiot who does something wrong and spreads it to all my friends and family. So we've been pretty strict in the sense that we've locked down pretty tight, as we're supposed to. We've followed all the rules. For me, basically life means working at home. I barely leave my home unless it's to go get groceries. And that's just the way it is. We'll get on Zoom calls, we'll do our podcasts. Now that Mark's home from Ireland, we kind of merged households between myself and my parents and Mark. And so it sucks and it bums both of us out. It bums everybody out around the world. I wish we could have a normal day and go out for dinner with our friends and, have a bunch of people up to the cottage, but it's just not possible right now. So, best to just have a good attitude about it and do the best you can. And
I think it's probably been used way too often, but like the saying, and I've lived by this for years, and then with COVID, everyone's like, oh, it is what it is. But you know what? It is what it is. And you just have to kind of deal with it for now and know like, well, this isn't life forever. We're in like a serious, like worldwide state. And just doing your individual part. For me, it's been interesting so I've been traveling obviously for school because I have to go back and forth. And so the flights have been fantastic. You're on this 400-person airline with like 45 people on it, and it is your own rows. You're stretching out.
Nice.
Yeah. So in that sense, it's been pretty lucky.
Linings.
It's the little things in life.
They just put everyone in first class. So,
I don't know. I'm sure they'd be okay with it. But yeah, no, like, and then it's like, do your 2 weeks of quarantining. I think in total, because I've been traveling, I've done like 2 months of quarantining, which is no fun for anyone. But, and I mean, I think we have enough hobbies on the go and I think that's huge. Like, if anything, this is just highlighted, like, hey, if you have to like be locked down, if you have to be in your house, like you need to have some hobbies that you're excited about. You can't just sit there. And I'm sure like alcohol abuse and substance abuse and things like that are just going through the roof, I would guess, because there's not much to do. But like, so, we have podcasts and music, and I'm a big artist myself. Like I've done a ton of painting because it's just things to pass the time. And I think that's one thing is like, get your hobby, get something you can do irrespective of whether there's a pandemic or not.
I've interviewed a couple of people from Canada, and there's been like varying kind of responses as far as like the level of restrictions and stuff. And obviously, it's the same in the UK, that it's dependent largely on outbreaks and where the numbers are deemed higher or lower. What are the restrictions like, and what have they been like, and what's the response been like to them in Toronto, Canada?
Good question. So we went right into like lockdown around March time, where everybody kind of locked down. The one thing I will say is, at least in Toronto, the actual restrictions and rules aren't nearly as clear as they are in other places. Like even Eastern Canada does a really good job at laying down, this is what you can and can't do. And I know there's some places in the UK that are like that too. Ours is very wishy-washy. So it's, there was this whole bubble talk going on for a while where you can only have 10 people in your bubble, but then they weren't really clear as to like, well, what if I have one bubble, but someone in my household has another bubble?
That made no sense.
It just, it didn't really make sense. And then we've been open for a long time, like restaurants and all that was able to go back into business. And just recently, I think a week ago, they locked down all of Ontario now.
Before that, we actually started on like a regional approach. So they broke everyone into like specific regions. And then if your numbers were too high, we're going to lock them down. And then as expected, I can't go out to dinner in my region. Well, I'll just travel 20 minutes and go to the next region where restaurants are still open. And it's obviously happened. And then, so now, as of about a week ago, now we're like full lockdown, no restaurants, nothing.
But as far as I know, there's no curfew like we've seen in other areas of the world. We don't have a curfew. It's basically just, they haven't even said if you like, I think there's still a number out there that you can have a certain number of people over.
Yeah,
I don't know. But you're not supposed to travel. Yeah. You're not supposed to cross regions and drive. And then everything's shut down except for basically grocery stores and anything deemed essential. Funny enough, liquor stores and cannabis shops are deemed essential. I mean, of course, right?
Yeah, and my thoughts exactly on that one. Have you seen any kind of like crazy responses in Canada as far as people acting a bit crazy? I mean, obviously the prevailing trend in most of the world initially has been, the beginning of the pandemic has always been, like stockpiling all this shit. But is there anything else that you've seen?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
For sure. We have, and I don't really go out in public, so it's not like I've seen this firsthand, but definitely on social media, you've got your strong anti-masker, anti-vaxxer communities that are just, I think actually the other day I saw a video of a bunch of people right before we went into lockdown dressed up in these white hazmat suits with a white almost V for Vendetta mask. And they all walked silently through one of the malls in Toronto with this big speaker playing like, the government is your friend. You people are the sheeps and blah, blah, blah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I was just watching.
That's
like,
probably happening without
these
COVID.
people are, yeah, for sure. They're the same flat earthers. They find something to fucking follow and believe in. And sometimes it's just ridiculous, but it is what it is. But yeah, I don't know. The amount of people that all of a sudden have read one article online and are completely convinced that this is a conspiracy, and they're not getting the vaccination. There's a huge, I would say there's a fairly large movement of people like that.
Yeah, I think one for me that is like, I can't grasp my head around why you would do this. So one, we're going to go into lockdown. He says it on Monday, numbers are so bad. We need to go into a province-wide lockdown on Saturday. And it's like, well, I don't get that. Like, if we need the province-wide lockdown, if things are so bad, like, let's do it effective immediately right now. Like, I don't get, we'll give you one more week, but it was because Christmas was here and we got to make it political. People need to see their family. And it's like, no, I'm really sorry, but you don't.
Yes.
So that, and then I don't get to, that leads into, okay, tomorrow night's lockdown. Let's hit the bars. Like, let's hit the restaurants tonight. Let's do it all before we're in lockdown. And it's like, the whole point of going into lockdown is to try and keep everyone safe. Not like, well, let's get it all out while we can. And I just, it's like, those are the people that are making us go back into lockdown. It's like, if everyone was just doing their part, it'd be nice. But so that's something that's bothered me.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Let's take.
Sorry, I get worked up on that.
No. I agree with you. It's been very similar in the UK. It's got me angry at times, but people just. I think it depends, I mean, it's like you said about the rules being kind of wishy-washy. I think that, like, in the UK, I blame the government a lot. Like, I felt like in the beginning of the pandemic, people didn't take it seriously. They took the piss. They still take the piss. And that does annoy me. But I feel like the government here has never been clear about anything. We've had the same sort of issues with, like, it's unclear about how many people, the bubbles thing. We have, like, things like, there's a lockdown, but then schools are open, and like you can't see your family, but then you can be in a classroom full of 30 people, or have like schools open with 400 people. Like, it's just contradictory rules, things that don't make sense. And
why do you think that is?
Couple of reasons. I think that the government in general that we have right now is just very piss poor at trying to like handle the situation as far as like making things more logical. So we have the ability and the capacity to operate schools and universities. Like, okay, you can make a case for schools being open, but like universities do not need to be open. You can do that 100% online. And it doesn't make sense to me that like they were completely done online at the beginning of the pandemic, but now they've been opened. And like,
why make that change?
Yeah, and like things like schooling, like I heard that schools were like reopened at one point, but only for essential workers' families, which made total sense to me. Like, if you've only got the essential workers out, have their children there, have much reduced, like, okay, if you've only got like classrooms with like 5 or 10 kids, that's manageable. But if it's like the normal amount that we have in schools, I mean, that goes against everything that we're telling people. Like, how is it logical that, we can't have, people going to pubs, bars, music venues, but then we can have 400 kids together in the same spot? Like, there's all of those things. And I've been questioning it since the beginning. We all have. Like, I think, if anything, as much as there's a lot of stupidity out there and people acting silly, at least people are questioning and going, oh, hang on, that doesn't make sense. And, that doesn't add up. And, it's good to at least get people's opening their eyes a bit and not just following and doing whatever they're told. And that's the thing. If you're just the type of person that just does what they're told and follows the government's instructions, in the UK, you'd still be confused because it's never clear. Like, I remember the last address, because I don't pay attention to them often because a lot of the time it's just like, oh, okay, we just have a lessened version of restrictions. Oh no, we have heightened. It's always basically the same. But I try to look out for like the major changes that happen. And the last major address that the the Prime Minister made, other than the Christmas stuff, which I could go into like a whole fucking argument about, but that's for another time. It was before, but before he was about to put us into a second lockdown, just for a month, he started laying out all the rules, right? And it was all pretty straightforward. But then he, and this typifies everything that I just said. He kind of goes, yeah, so the rule of 6 still applies. You can't be in a group any larger than 6. And you can't really mix with other households, but you can mix with one person from another household. And then he jumps to the next thing, and I'm like, hang on, okay, let's back up a second. So you're saying we can mix with other households, but we can only mix with one person from that other household. What difference does it make if we mix with one person or 12 people from that other bubble when they're all breathing the same air, being in the same environment? Like, it makes no fucking sense. And it's been like, what, 9 months of that shit, you know?
What if I live in a household with 6 people? So does that mean we're excluded from having somebody else because we're already 6? Or does that mean 6 additional people can come in?
Precisely.
Like, it's very wishy-washy. I think part of it is like what you were talking about, Christian, is that there's no right answer to this. It's kind of like economics. Like, every action has a reaction, and it's not necessarily the right way to do it. There's no cookie cutter, oh, well, this is what we do in a pandemic, this is what works, solution. And so what we're doing is trying to find the best way to manage it. And for governments, I always can't help but think that they're hesitant to say one thing because they're not certain. They don't know. So they don't want to say, okay, this is the rule, and then find out that they're wrong. And now
then just say, hey, we were wrong. We stood by our decision, but we were wrong. We fucked up. Like, everyone makes mistakes. You know,
that's not how politics works, right?
Yeah,
it's like,
you're right.
Well, now we're not getting elected next year because Red Party's coming in and saying, well, you guys fucked up and we're perfect. I don't agree with that. I think you're right. That's how it should be.
Yeah, but I think one of the worst parts about all of this is that COVID is not being handled from like a medical standpoint. And I know I'm certainly biased because that's like the industry that I'm in, but it's like, there are people that this is their job. They study viruses, they study pandemics for years and years, and they're specialists, and like, they're advising decisions, and then the government is adapting it to what suits the needs of like politics and the government. And it's like, well, no wonder it's not going to work. Like,
yes, I couldn't agree more. When I started hearing that shit, you know, like, it really started to anger me. I was like, look, we're in a fucking pandemic. I don't care about like your poll ratings or any of this shit. Like, I remember when Trump said that, he said, what did he say? Like, oh, my, like, I know it's Trump, so like, obviously it's ridiculous. But like, when he said something early on in the year about how his daily press briefings were getting like the highest ratings on the network, I was like, where the fuck is your head, man? Like, what are you smoking? Like, fucking hell. Like, talk about a sense of like unawareness.
And a lot of it's money too. Like, a lot of it comes from this, you know, I can't even remember what the word is, but it's these people that are pushing their agendas. So you've got, you know, the medical advisor telling you one thing, and they're saying, well, this is what we should do. And then you've got all of the people who have paid for your entire poll, who donate millions and billions of dollars towards your movement, saying, hey, that's not what we want.
Yeah, watch
that doesn't work for us. So fuck us over. Say goodbye to your $100 million that we gave you last year.
See, here's the thing. I agree with you. And to like fully address your earlier question about like, oh, why do you think they've done that? Like, I honestly think a lot of the decisions that the government are making in the UK now are purely business driven. I mean, it's a business government. The Conservatives are far right, but in the UK, I've always seen it as like Conservatives are business, Labour is more about the worker, so to speak. And that's fine, but like, they already kind of fucked us with the first lockdown, which was necessary, but it came way too late. And like I said, the instructions were always off. And the biggest mistake I think we made was essentially opening the country pretty much up in summer. Like, it wasn't completely business as normal, but we were allowed to essentially have like, you know, bars open, you know, clubs, all that shit. And I thought that was just the biggest mistake ever. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't want that. I never want that. I just want things to go back to the way they were. But like,
Yeah.
with decisions like that, and like having Christmas as well, when I heard, like, in the UK, here's what happened, right? Boris goes, oh, okay. So we come out of the second lockdown, so it's like early December, and like everyone's like, is Christmas going to happen? Is he going to cancel Christmas? What's going to happen? And he says about 2 weeks before, yeah, you can have sort of a Christmas, but you can only have like a restricted amount, and it's according to your tier restrictions, because we're all in different tiers, regional tiers. But it looked like we were at least getting something. And then at the last minute, maybe like a week before, he goes, yeah, no, we're going to have to double back on that. And essentially, like, he cancelled Christmas, essentially. You know, and like, look, I know it sucks to be that guy and have to do that, but he shouldn't have been giving any form of a Christmas in the first place. We should have just seen it as a write-off, because we're not, you know, I hate to fucking agree with the government, but like, you know, as far as like needing to adhere to rules and restrictions, I think it's very important. And I think a lot of the time with people not obeying the rules, I think it comes down to like being sick and tired and wanting to get back to normality, which I do understand, but
Definitely.
it's up to the government to make everything clear and make it consistent. And they have not made it consistent, and they've always been to blame. And because of that, it's made things worse. Like, I felt like that summer opening I probably added another like 6 months to this already existing.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think we did the same thing here too.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, we opened everything up in summer, and it's like, it's nice out. Oh, you know what? Let's open the patios. Let's open and it's like, why? We just shouldn't be doing that. I like,
yeah.
And I'm very like straight, like yes or no, do it or don't. But it's like, so in this instance, it's like, well, no, don't do it. It's just a terrible idea. There is a pandemic running around our country, the entire world. And yeah, like I'm just a strong believer in like, yeah, don't do it. And they're like, well, what about the kids on Halloween? And it's like, you know what? No offense. Screw the kids on Halloween. They don't need to go house to house and get candy. Do it next year when there's no pandemic. And hopefully if we do it properly, there won't be one next year. And then it's like, everyone just, and then it's like, oh, Halloween's done. What's the next thing? Well, Christmas. What's happening on Christmas? And now Christmas done. New Year's. And it's like, there's always going to be a what about the next thing, instead of people just like being like, yeah, you know what? Let's just lay low, forget about all these things until it's time that we can do them again.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I get so frustrated at people and their inability to be able to see things like that. Like, I know not everyone thinks the same way, fine. But yeah, why is it always like, oh, it's do you know what it's like? It's like a petulant child, and you say to the child, listen, you can't have this thing. And then you have to keep explaining to them why. And they go, but why? But why? Oh, you're just being mean. It's like that. It's exactly like that.
Exactly. Except it's a 45-year-old man, and you're like, dude, just listen to the facts. It's gonna be. And then they're like, well, I don't believe the facts. And it's like, well, you know what?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
What do you do for a career? Because I don't believe it.
There's no budget.
I don't even know what it is.
Those people, though, it's just, you may as well be talking to the wall. Like, they're never going to listen to your opinion and change their mind. There's no support. There's no research you can show them that's going to get them to change their mind. They're just stuck in their ways, and they know best. And hey, why can't I have? We had a guy in Toronto. I don't know if it made international news, but we had a guy in Toronto who basically refused to lock down. He owns a small barbecue business, and he just said, no, you guys are full of shit. I don't believe any of your crap. I'm keeping my barbecue open, and I'm having people in, and I don't care if they're wearing a mask or not. And it got all this hype. And then, of course, there's a huge following of those people who are like, yeah, I agree with him. We're all sheep. This is a ridiculous conspiracy. They're just trying to control us. I'm going to this guy's house for barbecue, or this guy's barbecue place to get a sausage. And it's just like, you can't reason with those people. You can't reason with stupidity. And eventually he got arrested. And
rightly so.
Apparently he's starting a lawsuit against the state or against the province or whatever, but they've changed the locks on his business, and it's developing all this hype. And now what eventually it's going to come down to is all of our taxpayer dollars are going to go towards paying for this guy's stupid lawsuit because he decided to be an idiot about something.
Yeah, this is a moron.
But you can't, my point is that you can't reason with those people. You just have to accept it and say, All right. You know,
I think the problem is though, like people don't follow the rules, and I know it's like beating a dead horse a little bit, but like you do kind of need to put like measures in place to like fully restrict people. Like here in the UK,
yeah,
I don't want a militarized state. Obviously, I don't want it to ever come to that.
No.
But like at the same time, I feel like people don't take shit seriously unless you kind of have like army or police there going no. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you kind of, in a way, you need that presence. You don't want force, but you want someone going no to kind of reinforce like, yeah, we shouldn't be fucking doing this.
Yeah.
But in the UK, it's been like, hey guys, let's try to do this. Like, please do this. Please do this. Please. And it's like, no one's going to fucking listen to that. Like, come on.
Yeah. It's very similar in Dublin. So everything's supposed to be closed when I was there. They're in full lockdown, right? And they're not in it at the moment, but they're going to go back into it by the time I get back there, I would guess. So I'm like, okay, so I am in my house with my roommates and that's it. And we're like trying to make the most of our final year and like study. And we're going into the hospitals and stuff because, you know, in a couple months, like that's our job. So we kind of have to be there. And I'm all cool with it. Like the precautions are great. Anyways, so you're like, oh, you know, I would die for like a fresh Guinness. That would be beautiful. And you just like, I guess we'll wait. Like, hopefully it happened. And then I go into the city center because I have to write this exam. And there's a pub with like 200 people out front of it. And they're just serving pints of Guinness out the window. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I walked down the street a little bit more. Oh, no, the pubs aren't even supposed to be open, period. Walk down the street a little more. Another pub serving pints of Guinness out the window. I'm like, oh, interesting. I'm like, this seems terribly wrong. Then a bunch of Garda walk by, do absolutely nothing about it.
Right.
They just, and I'm like, okay, so this is just an unwritten rule that you don't like, that we're going to allow this to happen.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand the logic behind that. And then certainly there was like this one pub by my house that was serving it out the window, but there was a Garda standing there just going, hey guys, you can't stay here. You can get your pint of Guinness and walk down the street, which is also illegal. Like you can't drink alcohol in public in Dublin. But at least I'm like, okay, at least there's not 200 people sitting outside of this pub having a great time.
Right.
And, yeah. And it very strange. I was just like, why? How does this happen when it is illegal? It's against the rules. And yet no one's enforcing the rules, even the Garda. I was like, huh, all right.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then I leave. They go out of lockdown. Apparently the bars are packed. And I'm going to go back in like 2 weeks or so. And no doubt they'll be like, oh, the numbers don't look so good. Back into lockdown. It's like, great.
You see that whole mentality, oh, we need to immediately try something and revert back. It's like you just shouldn't be doing it, full stop. You should, like, you know, the rules just should be fixed until a time when we essentially come out of it. I mean, like right now, I mean, I don't want it to be this way, but I would kind of expect us to like stay in a lockdown until all the vaccines are given out, and then everyone's kind of like, I suppose, like good to go, so to speak. You know? And, you know, you can kind of lift everything and go back to normal. And, you know, that's kind of what I want to happen and what I think is best. But it doesn't seem like we're doing that. It's just all fucked. Like in the UK, like that tier system I told you about, like it's all over the bloody place as far as like knowing where you're at, knowing what's open, what's not open.
Yeah.
It's pandemonium.
Yeah. And my prediction from like early on, I was like, watch, a vaccine's going to come out. Lots of excitement. And it truly is exciting. Like I am pumped for this. And, you know, it's going to take a few months to 6 months or so, get everything going. And I was like, watch, the vaccine's going to come out. People are going to lose their minds being like, oh, perfect, there's a vaccine. We don't have to worry anymore. Not thinking like it's going to be like 7 months before this vaccine takes its effect properly, where we can like safely do what we were doing in everyday living. And then there's going to be another massive spike because people are just going to not be vaccinated, but like in their mind, like, oh, everything's a little bit better. We have a vaccine coming out. And it's kind of happening. And now everyone's going back into lockdown. So interesting times we live in.
Yeah. To say the least.
Moving things forward, what would you say are the best and worst things about living in Toronto, Canada? And forget about COVID. Pretend that's not an issue for a minute. Just in general.
I don't know, man. I don't really have much to compare to. I don't live in I'm just going to talk about living in Ontario in general, because we're outside of Toronto. I don't think I would. I don't think the city is. I'm not cut for the city. I don't want to live like right in Toronto. That's just really busy and really hectic. It's very much, like living on Oxford Street or something.
Pardon my ignorance here, but I know Ontario is a separate place, but is it like Toronto's a city and Ontario's like part of it, but outside of it, or
no?
Is it
Ontario's the province, so
it's like a state.
Yeah,
a state within Toronto.
No. Toronto is in Ontario. So Ontario's this big province, and then Toronto's a city inside of Ontario. Ottawa's also in Ontario.
So it's the equivalent of like if we were talking about the states, then it's like a state essentially.
Like Texas. Yeah. Ontario is like
Gotcha.
And then Texas has Austin and Houston. Yeah. So we have our own words for it for some reason. Yeah. So we're in like Georgetown or Guelph, which are just like smaller municipalities. 60,000, 100,000 people. Outside of Toronto by 20-30 minutes on a highway. So we're not far from Toronto, but certainly not in that big city feel. I don't know though, the goods and the bads. I mean, I enjoy it. I like Canada. I think we have a wicked cottage area in Ontario. You hear about Ontario cottages like the Muskokas and areas like that. It's just absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. And the wildlife here is cool. Downside is definitely the seasonality of living here.
Oh, I was gonna say that's a positive for me.
I
love it.
It's got its ups and downs, but the fact that it's hard to explain to people that haven't been here, but we get 2 to 3 months of really hot temperatures, like 30 degrees. Where in the UK it would be heat wave that day. And we get like two months of that at least. Then we have your fall season, which is like kind of gloomy, similar to, Dublin every day of the year. And then we have winter, which is like, 3 feet, 4 feet of snow, can get down to -20, just absolute freezing as if you're in the Arctic. And then spring comes, and then it just goes in this huge cycle where you have to be prepared for just heavy, heavy winter and then also super hot summer.
But sounds perfect. To be honest.
I love it. Like that was actually one of my I was gonna say it's a positive. I love snow, but I also love the heat. I like the different activities they bring in.
Yeah, I do like that too.
And for some reason, it's just a massive talking point in Canada. Like everyone's just talking about the weather. Oh, gotta get ready for winter. You get your salt for the driveway, and it's like sure.
Yeah,
my girlfriend's parents are from like way north of Ontario, like in Nunavut, so like Arctic's are way up there, and it got -70 like 2 weeks ago. -70 degrees Celsius. I can't even imagine.
And it's dark. You can't go outside of your house
they just dress up really appropriately. It's dark 24 hours.
Oh, fuck that.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Not down for that.
No interest.
No.
I want to go there, visit.
Or light for 3 weeks straight.
Yeah, middle of summer.
That would fuck with you. That would be bad for your health, I think.
It yeah, it is. For sure. Like throws off your whole circadian rhythm. You need like UV lamps in the periods of like darkness so that you're getting that like fake artificial sunlight.
Canada's so vast, man. Like it's hard, especially people from Europe. It's hard to explain that from one end of Canada to the next end is extremely massive compared to European countries.
Well, in
like
Ireland,
how long does it take to fly from the east coast of Canada to the west coast? We're talking
9 hours, maybe
at least 10, 11, something 12 like hours of flight. I can drive 13 or 14 hours north and still be in the same province and see a completely different shift in temperature and landscape.
Wow.
Like it's huge.
Man, that's a cool thing in just for Dublin as perspective. Like people, my friends there are like 45 minutes is like a huge drive. And I was like, I used to drive 45 minutes to work every day.
Yeah.
Like for us, that it's extremely normal. You can drive, Dublin to Galway in like 2.5 hours, maybe. That's the whole country.
It's the entire island.
And driving Canada would be like 3 weeks of straight driving or something like that. Like an outrageous amount of driving.
But so different. Like you'd see such different landscapes going through the prairies and into the mountains, and it's wild.
Cool, man. And I've asked Canadian guests this before, but I think it's a worthy question. Why are Canadians so nice?
I don't know. Why isn't everybody else so nice?
Yeah, that's the question.
Why are you all assholes? Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. We'll
I
turn
mean,
it
it's
right
like you guys are known for being nice, and I gotta say, like every Canadian I've met, always been really nice. I don't know what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
I know a few assholes, but
Yeah, of
I
course.
mean,
It's gonna
you're
be
always
some.
going to find those people. In general, I don't know if it's culture or community or just, I don't know. Because I mean, I feel kind of similar when we go to Europe. We've been to a number, Ireland, London, France, Scotland, and uh, generally speaking, people are pretty receptive. I've always encountered fairly nice
Yeah,
people.
but we're also Canadian.
But we're also Canadian.
Like you should. It's
We're also
unbelievable
tourists.
how many times I'll meet
true.
people new in Dublin or anywhere, and they're like, "Oh, you're American." Like taxi driver.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're American, and I'm like, "Oh no, Canadian." And they're like, "Oh, sorry,
just
I'm
lighten
really
up.
sorry." And I'm like, "Well, that's fine. Like we sound the same. I'm genuinely not upset that you called me American."
Yeah.
But I think for the rest of the world, there's a massive divide between, and maybe I think a lot of Canadians would play into that too and be like, I'm not American, but it's like, I don't know. It's
I don't really
close
care.
enough. Like,
Yeah.
I think the flip
there's
reverse.
really-
I think Americans might take offense to being called Canadian potentially, but I don't think that probably really happens. Really, does it? Like,
Yeah.
well,
No.
they made actually traveling. Like I know, like there's been Americans will sew like Canadian flags on their travel bags and stuff because you're just like received nicer from people around the world. I guess I don't know.
interesting.
I think everyone should just be nice and the world would be a
agree.
better place.
Go on, couldn't agree more. But I have to ask that question because it's just just intrigues me. Now this is a fun one. I've never actually asked any of my guests this before, but I think it's fun just to kind of like just look back on potentially. Where do you guys see yourself in 5 years' time?
Still in Canada.
That's good.
I mean, easy answer for me, just completing my training for school, which is like I'm really pumped about that. Like finally, like getting a job at 33 or something like that, 31. But in terms of our like music and podcasts, like I think it's just doing the same thing, learning how to do it a little bit better each time we do it. And like certainly music, just like creating as much music as possible. Like I don't think that'll ever be something that will stop. There'll be times of like not being able to put as much time into it as we'd like, and there'll be times where it's like, great, we have a ton of time to devote towards music, but kind of just like maintaining that, building where we can, getting better where we can, and seeing what happens in 5 years for me.
Yeah, I agree. Same for me, right? Like I'm super happy with where we are at and what we're doing right now, and I think just doing it better and bigger than we're already doing. I mean, look how far we've come in a year, and the podcast has only been out for 3 months. So, I mean, 5 years from now, it's gonna be pretty high production. I'm excited. It's fun to get into. So, yeah, I think just basically bigger and better than what we're already doing right now, and maybe taking on more. But yeah.
That's a really good response, actually. I just love that question because I find it kind of hilarious generally. Like I've always usually experienced that in job interviews.
Yeah, job interviews.
Yeah.
And I always just think it's such a bullshit question. I mean, yeah, sometimes I like to joke and just think like, oh, with your job or, just like, fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, I've said that.
But, really?
In the one bank that I interviewed in, they said, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And I said, "Sitting in your chair."
And what did he say?
Started laughing. He loved it. He thought it was hilarious. I got the job.
Hey,
I
okay,
was
so it
his
works.
chair in like a year and a half. So
For real?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Sometimes confidence. There's a fine line between confidence and cockiness. But if it's confidence, like I'm confident enough to say this, but like that I'm kind of joking, but I'm also kind of not joking.
I mean,
So,
the whole
just
premise of that question, though, isn't it? It's about goal and ambition. It's like they want you to kind of say, with them and
yeah.
Well, it doesn't not necessarily with them. I mean, like if you take marketing, like my field as an example, like you could either say, oh yeah, I want to be like head of marketing, or you could be like, I want to have my own marketing firm. Like there's different ways you could go with it, and both are equally acceptable because it's like you're saying, I have goals, I have ambitions, I'm here for the long term. You're saying various things with that answer.
Yeah, that was one thing I was actually, so I'm like in the middle of this like interview scheme. And I was nervous about the States applications because I'm Canadian. They can see that. I was like, oh God, they're going to ask that and be like, so why do you want to work in America? Like, clearly you're Canadian. Wouldn't you want to work in Canada? And I was nervous about it. And then I realized like, they don't necessarily want to hear like, oh, I want to be with your program, changing the world, like representing your school. Like, they just want to know that for the 4 years that I'm going to be there, I'm going to be a good fit and use it as a stepping stone to get to where I want to be. Like, they want to see I have goals and that your program suits those goals, not necessarily like you're going to be the best place and I'm going to work there for 45 years and retire. And I was like really nervous about that. I was like, because why would they, if they're just like, oh, you're just going to use us to get back to Canada and live there where you want to live. And I was like, oh yeah, I should. And then they were totally cool with it. Because I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not going to be like, for you forever. Like, I was totally like, yeah, I one day would like to be working in Canada. And they're like, yeah, great.
Do you think there's ever like as far as like Americans dealing with Canadians, like, do they ever hold that like against you guys? Or like, is there any kind of, I don't know how to put it exactly, but like when you were talking then, it kind of almost implied at one point that like, almost like you have it better in Canada, like why the hell fuck would you want to come to the States kind of thing, which is fair. I could see several arguments being made for that, and obviously it's well known how patriotic Canadians are, equally Americans are. But I just find that kind of part of it quite interesting. Like, I just wanted to know, is there like friction there? Like, what's the deal there?
I would say not in like the medical profession. Why I would be talking like that is because there's only 4 positions, at their school, and they have like 2,000 applicants. So it's kind of like a competitive nature of trying to figure out what are they looking for in their applicants. And if I'm just going to run off to Canada, am I just going to get looked over and not get this position? I certainly don't think like there would be, at least from I'm sure there is, but no, in the medical profession, I think they're more than happy to have Canadians. I'm more than happy to be there. Super supportive. And it's actually been a great experience, but I just didn't know, like, I just didn't want to be looked over because I want to work in Canada one day and them just be like, well, we want to train doctors that want to stay in the States and be like, damn, I instantly ruined my chances of getting your job. Yeah. So that was from my perspective, but I'm sure it exists in different fields and stuff like that, no doubt.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think you made some really good points there. I think there sometimes can be these stigmas between countries. I mean, it really depends, as you say, on industry and like on various different factors. But ultimately, a good company or a good industry will just be looking at like what works for them and not anything else, really. It doesn't really matter sort of where you are. It's more about like what you can bring and does it fit the mold and all of that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And that's
totally,
I've never done an interview in my life till this year. And that's what, I don't know, I'm 26. So it was kind of like, oh, this is going to be weird. And it was like the most normal, natural thing ever, because they're just trying to, it's not like you're trying to compete for a spot in school. You're like, they want you there. They want the right person for the job. So if you're they just want to see, like, if I have to work for this guy for 4 years, like, am I going to like the guy? Are we going to get along? So it was really like, I've enjoyed all of them. Yeah. It was really cool. Not intense at all.
Huge.
The first one, I was super nervous. And then it was like, now I'm just like, oh, this is exciting. Like, get to meet some new people. Maybe and I've had a few where like genuine connections with these people. And it's like, wow, that's a huge factor of whether I would want to work there or not. So massive. Yeah. It's been really cool.
And I've been on the flip side before. I've interviewed numerous times and hired for numerous positions, and that's exactly what I look for. I do my quick vet, do a little bit of work, like find out, okay, let me check out this guy's social media, like make sure he's not doing keg stands on, Tuesday afternoons. And then, basically I'm going to ask those silly questions like, where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? I really don't care what you say. I could care less where you want to be in 3 to 5 years. I'm just trying to gauge, like, how good are you at speaking? How good are you at thinking on the spot? And then, are we going to vibe? Is there a connection here? And did I like you? I'm way more often to take the person that I liked if he's an equal candidate to the person who I have nothing in common with.
said this on the past podcast before, but I feel that the saying that, you know, there was a statistic somewhere years ago, or like a saying or something, that apparently the first 20 seconds of the interview decides, you know, whether or not you're going to employ that person. Everything else is just filler, or as you say, to get an idea of like, how did they react to this, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, totally. The vibe and the chemistry is the most important thing. And that's why I find it funny, actually. Like, a lot of the time, there's been so many times when I've interviewed for jobs, and like there was one earlier, because I've been unemployed the whole year. I've been freelancing and been on unemployment benefit and all that stuff. And it's the first time it's ever happened in my life. And I'm obviously leaning more onto the freelance stuff and trying to make that my career. Because I just can't find a job, as crazy as it sounds. You know, with a degree and 3 years experience, like, it still blows my mind to this day. But the weird thing is, obviously, throughout that time, I have had interviews here and there. And it seems like, you know, sometimes you really feel like you're going to get it. And then, like, there was one where I literally, like, it was all pretty much all but done. And they were like, yeah, we're going to call you later. You're just going to iron out a few things, blah, blah, blah. And then that call didn't happen. And then I get an email in the evening like, oh, hey, yeah, sorry, don't have enough experience, blah, blah, blah. And that always feels weird to me, because a lot of the time when I walk out of a job interview, there's just the uncertainty. You know, you feel that it went well, but you don't know either way. But when you get those scenarios where you're like, oh, yeah, no, I feel like I've got it, and then you don't get it, it's quite a sinking feeling. And because you're thinking about, like, we really connected, the vibe was good, we're similar people, like, surely they're going to want me. But then, you know, I guess they just click with someone else. But it's interesting. It's very interesting.
It is interesting. I love them. One of my last interviews, they asked me, how much are you looking to get paid for this role? And I basically just, well, how much are you willing to pay me? And that just circled a few times. Well, like, no, give me a number. Okay, cool. You give me a number first, and then I'll tell you a number. And it just, I didn't want to tell you. Like, that's the toughest part. Yeah, like evaluating yourself. How do you say a number? Like, okay, I know like the ballpark of where these roles are at, but like, I think I should be near the top of that. And then you say that number, and you just tell by their face, they're like, oh yeah, we're not paying you that much.
I think that's a fair thing to do, though. Like, whenever I look at a role,
no,
when they ask me that question, like, oh, how much do you think, like, you know, you should get for the role? I look at, like, well, here's where I'm at in my career. You know, here's what I've been paid before, and here's what the average is. So I think I'm at this point. And I'm always fair with it. I never go like, you know, okay, like, for instance, if there's like a marketing exec role and it's paying like 24 per annum, I would say pay me 22 based on my current experience. I think that's reasonable. You know, you try to go, and like pretty much everyone I've spoken to on the phone, they, you know, unless they're lying, they always seem to be like, yeah, that's fair. You know, like usually they kind of, I've never heard anyone go, wow, or like, you know, they wouldn't give it away, but you know what I mean? Like, there would be like a pause or like, okay. You know, there's nothing like that. And I think, because you just have to be reasonable with that question. You know, it's a horrible question to receive, but
you do, yeah.
Just be honest. You know, just be real with yourself and your current situation and the market average as well. Like, don't undersell yourself either. I think a lot of people do that. They think, if I say a lower number, they're more likely to. But then it can work against you if you say to a lower number.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this guy doesn't value himself. Like,
you're like, you're only worth 18. Ooh.
Yeah. Cheap.
Yeah.
Why should we employ you? You're cheap as
yeah.
That's right. That's why I make them tell me the number. You tell me the number.
It's clever tactic.
What are you going to pay me? And then they'll say a number, and you go, okay, cool. I want 1,000 more than that.
And like,
no. Okay. It's like the guy from the pawn shop things. Like, best I can do is 12.
Yeah, you're like, what?
Okay.
As we draw things to a close today, I want to just ask you, do you have any upcoming projects or some final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Ooh. I go? Will I drop? So one of my that we've been thinking about for a while and working on is kind of on the whole idea of like making a multimedia platform. And one thing I'm going to be working on in the next like 6 months is working like a clothing line into it.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's something like I said, I mentioned before, like painting and art, and I love designing, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. Like I've drawn all my previous bands like album covers and a few other bands and things like that. Like I absolutely love it.
Cool.
So I think it just kind of makes sense in this, that it's like, hey, you can use these companies where with some overhead pay, you don't actually pay for the clothing individually, and you can upload all these all of your logos and make all these ideas and just have a website for it and kind of start from there and just kind of brand promoting and tying it all back into the music and the podcasting. So that's something that I'm hoping to get going in the next like 6 months, and then in 2021 hopefully get things rolling.
Yeah, and my side is like to continue what we're doing, obviously, but I think I'm working on much better video content. We have got a lot in the works, so I'm just trying to pump all that out as quick as I can. Plus, we've got our EP, which I guess I said is like 4 or 5, maybe 6 months out. So we're still tweaking some stuff with that. And otherwise, want to continue hopping on other people's podcasts because this is a lot of fun. And you've had a great interview. I should stop and say thank you right now for having us on the show. This has been fantastic. We didn't know what to expect. Just a quick conversation, and we're like, all right, well, let's do it. Mark asked me before. He goes, well, what's it about? I'm like, I have no idea. Yeah, he said we didn't need to prepare, so let's just go on it and have a natural conversation. And we love these types of things. So thank you again for having us. This has been a blast, and just look forward to seeing more of our stuff in the future.
Yeah, look forward to bringing you to Canada.
Yeah, I would love to come. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I just want to say to all my listeners, make sure to go check out the Hirst brothers, both their music and their podcast. As you can hear, they are great guys. They're very interesting and have a lot to say. I feel like I talk to you guys for hours, if I'm honest, but there's only so many hours in the day. So I'd definitely love to have you on the show again. And I wish you the very best of luck.
On that note, projects. We'd love to have you on ours as well.
Would love to appear. Maybe you can review some of my music. I don't know.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Any way you want to slice it. Yeah. We'll definitely keep in touch.
Awesome. And I just want to say a big thank you to all of my listeners of the Christian Reeve podcast. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Leave me your thoughts. Let me know what you like, you dislike, who you want to see on the podcast, what you want to hear on the podcast moving into 2021. And make sure, if you're listening on the audio platforms, wherever you listen, Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever, I think we're on that 10 different platforms at this point. Please make sure to leave a review or a rating, something like that. It all helps. It all helps me towards eventually getting maybe a sponsor for this, doing this for a living. That's the ultimate goal. So your support, your feedback, and anything else is invaluable to me. And thank you so much for listening. And until next time, peace out, one love. I'll see you in the next one.